Yeah, I can hear you. Everything's fine. Yeah. So, what's the objection?
Oh,
Hello.
I had the tab muted. I can hear you. Hello?
Hello. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I wanted to know like what the objection was.
Okay, I was curious. What is your rationale that you think that um junk food full of added sugar, not to mention even the anti-nutrients, phytochemicals, plant toxins, all that other stuff. I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering, why do you believe that junk food is capable of saving someone's life?
Oh yeah. Sure. So this particular position that I'm taking is specific to in hospital settings where people are likely like where nutrition is going to. So in situations in hospital where nutrition is going to be the turning point for somebody's health, I think that junk food is likely to be more useful in rescuing people from those critical conditions than whole foods.
Okay, and
I could I mean I could walk it I could
why?
walk you through it.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Yeah, yeah. So like true or false are junk foods. Okay, so true or false, junk foods tend to be hyper palatable and calorie dense and easy to eat.
Sure.
And that's in
Yes,
comparison to
true.
whole foods. Okay, true. So, in a hospital setting where nutrition is likely to be critical, or yeah, easy to digest, like somebody in the chat like corrected me. I just woke up. I literally just got out of bed. Okay,
Okay, but
so
what are you considering whole foods? Like, please compare some junk food to whole foods for me, real quick.
yeah, sure. So like say like a bag of potato chips versus a whole baked potato. That would be like a really probably the most solid example I could give you of where a junk food would be capable of providing somebody more calories than the whole food. In order to get to the same amount of calories as potato chips, you would need to eat. I mean, like an for what you could eat in a sitting, the amount of potatoes that you would need to eat would be untenable. And like the amount of steak that you would need to eat, like if you're taking a position closer to that, would be even more untenable. So, in situations where people's health turns on whether or not they get sufficient calories, it is true or false, it would be more likely that somebody would meet their calorie needs on junk food as opposed to whole foods.
I mean, okay, so we're considering whole foods not to be meat, right? We're considering whole foods not to be meat,
Well,
right?
no, no, no. Whole foods just means whole foods, right? So like we could equalize it. So would somebody be more likely in a hospital setting to meet their protein needs on say beef jerky as opposed to whole steak?
Um, okay, but where are they gonna get the rest of their calories from? Like, you're saying that throughout the entire day, that like I don't understand. Like, what are you exactly saying?
I'm saying that it is more likely that people whose critical condition will turn on the calories that they need are more it is more likely that people whose condition will turn on the calories they need will have that met by junk food rather than whole food. So let me phrase it a different way. What type of meal
And you
is
think
more
that's
likely
dangerous?
to provide
So you
cal?
think that is?
Hmm?
You said, oh wait, say it again. Say it again. Forgive me.
Yeah,
Forgive
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
What did you
So,
say?
what type of meals are more likely to provide adequate calories for somebody who say is in a hospital and wasting? So this is an example of somebody whose critical condition turns on the type of nutrition that they get. So like if somebody is in the hospital for a broken leg, I don't really think it matters for their long-term health outcomes whether or not they eat donuts during that hospital stay or whether or not they eat steak and eggs during that hospital stay. I literally don't think that it matters. But if somebody is say wasting or cachexic or needs to be like refed in the hospital, calories are the turning point for their critical condition. So you have two possible meals for a subject or a patient in a hospital. So the first meal is like steak and eggs or steak and potatoes. And then the second meal is beef jerky and potato chips. Which meal is more likely to satisfy their calorie needs?
I believe that would be without a doubt the meal that has the steak in it,
Why?
without a doubt.
Why?
I believe we just fundamentally disagree with So let's see, let's
So
see.
wait.
Like,
No. You signed off. You signed off earlier that the junk food is. You signed off earlier that the junk food in the comparison that I gave between like potatoes and potato chips, or no, I don't even think I made that analogy yet, or I didn't even bring that up as an
yeah, I'm
example.
not sure.
Yeah. At the beginning of the conversation, I asked you whether or not calorie-dense, hyperpalatable food was more likely to provide calories than whole foods, and you said yes. So are you taking that position back now?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
so now you're
I would
taking the
say.
position back. So now hyperpalatable, calorie-dense food is not more likely to lead to the overconsumption of calories or to achieve
No,
adequate calories
no.
compared to the whole foods.
Because, look, look, if we're talking about something like a steak has plenty of fat. Is more likely to keep them um, filled actually in comparison to junk food.
No. But
It's
in a
literally
hospital no. I have to stop you there. In a hospital setting where calories are the critical turning point for their condition, you do not want
okay.
them to be full.
Okay.
You
So
want
how
to
many
keep
calories do you
feeding
think
them
someone can
calories.
from?
Like if somebody has
Okay, but
cancer and they're cachexic, your goal is not to keep them satiated. Like your goal is not to keep them satiated. Your goal
okay,
is to
but your
pump them up
goal
full of
shouldn't be to
calories.
give them. You should. Your goal shouldn't be to give them detrimental food either.
Well,
That's not. That's
that's
not
a
how.
red herring. That's a red herring, because
No, junk.
you
Okay,
need to
I'm trying
demonstrate
to.
to
No,
me. No,
I'm
no, no, no,
trying.
no, 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 no.
I'm
You would need to
trying.
demonstrate to me that choosing the junk food meal over the whole food, say steak and eggs meal, would actually be more likely to
Okay.
lead to better,
o-
like short term acute outcomes for this cachexic patient. Do you have any evidence to support that?
Okay. Quick question, sir. Does junk food have more? Does junk food have added sugar in it? Does junk food typically have added sugar in it?
Yep.
All right. Now there's various studies showing the detriments of too much and just general added sugar consumption. Right?
Yep.
Can we agree on that?
Yep. I
Right.
agree.
So okay. So why do you think that that meal would be more beneficial to saving their life than a simple meal of fat and protein, which is steak and eggs?
Because it has more calories, it's easier to digest, and it is less satiating.
Wait, so junk food has more calories than a steak. Do you realize how many calories a steak has?
It depends on the steak, but I could just up the ante and
50 more
choose,
calories.
and I could just up the ante and choose a junk food with more calories. I think the junk food is almost always going to win.
What? Please tell me what junk food has more calories than a steak. I'm very
I mean,
interested in
okay, I
this.
can open up Chronometer right now. What kind of steak would you?
No,
What kind of steak would you like me to look up?
ribeye,
I
ribeye,
sent a
typical ribeye
screenshot, you
steak.
can look at it.
Where is it?
On Pump Dump, I know it's a weird channel, but that's what I had up.
A
Uh,
typical ribeye steak.
a typical
What junk
ribeye
food
steak.
has more
So beef
calories?
jerky for 200 grams of beef jerky, for example, that'd be 820 calories. For hamburger, 80% lean. Actually, you should go like 70% lean to maximize the amount of fat in there. Ground beef, 70% lean. I think like if you're trying to target calories, you probably wouldn't be able to get better than that. I don't know of any. I don't know. Is there a cut that's fattier? Yeah, 540 calories. Ribeye steak. Let's look up ribeye steak with fat. No trimmed fat. Lean only. Maybe ribeye is two words. Yeah. Visible fat eaten for ribeye. Let's go 200 grams of that. That's 500 calories. The junk food wins. I mean, I don't even need to look for any other junk food. It just wins. Let's go potato chips. Potato chips, 200 grams. That's 1,000 calories. That's double the calories.
Okay, but who's eating 200 grams worth of potato chips? That is
Dude, that's a
how many
bag of potato
like
chips. I could crush that after dinner.
You said that's a bag of potato chips?
Yeah, 200 grams is a bag of potato. I literally have a 200-gram bag of potato chips right beside me right now.
That is absurd. Okay.
So, like, are
I
you
didn't
denying that the
realize that.
potato chips have more calories than the steak?
Um,
Because you came here to school me on
uh,
logic. Let me
first,
let me read what you said. Let me
let's
read what
do
you
that.
said. Well,
Listen,
Is Nick the in? Wait. Well, is the
everything you
Nick
said.
individual in here? I want to honestly see what foolish reasoning he has. Going going to give him the okay yeah. Okay, so what's wrong with my reasoning? Like, what's wrong with my reasoning?
It's
Potato chips
illogical.
have
How could you
no,
say that
okay.
junk food? How
It's
could you
wait
say
wait wait wait
that
wait
junk
wait
food
no.
has any
Okay,
place in a
no.
person's mouth?
Just stop for 1 second. You used a very specific term right there, and I just want to get clarification on it. You said that it was illogical, meaning that what I'm saying entails a contradiction. Can you tell me what the contradiction is?
Say it again, sir.
Yeah, you said that what I said was illogical, meaning that either what I said was either invalid or unsound. So, can you point to
Perhaps
whether
I
or not it
misspoke.
was invalid or unsound? Can you tell me how?
Perhaps I misspoke. I'm just looking for your reasoning.
Okay, yeah, my reasoning is junk food contains more calories and is more likely to rescue people when calories are the turning point of the critical condition.
So, so, okay. So, what evidence do you have that people need a certain amount of calories to even be healthy? Like, what is
Wait,
actually the evidence?
it's like what is my evidence that energy metabolism exists? Is basically what you're asking me.
No, because listen. People can survive for like months to 3 months to 6 months to a year without food. So, what is your
We're
Okay, but
talking
evidence
about
that?
recovering people.
no. This is completely tangential because I am talking about a specific kind of person who's in a hospital with something like cachexia, somebody who needs to be refed, somebody with wasting, somebody whose critical
Okay, but
condition turns on the nutrition that they get. If somebody is in the hospital for a
okay, what
broken
is
leg, it that the nutrition that they get while they're in the hospital is not going to be the turning point of their condition. When you're in a hospital and nutrition is actually going to be the turning point for your condition, it is like
so what
99% of the time
turning
going
point
to be
is the
calories.
turning point? Where are you getting this? It's going to be the turning point from? Like, where are these added
Okay,
ingredients helping
so
you
do you know what
over whole
cachexia
food?
is? Do you know what wasting is?
No, I do not, sir. I
Okay,
do not.
we have a medical student in here who'd be more than willing to explain it. We have two medical students in here who'd be more than willing to explain what wasting and cachexia are. You guys can have the floor and explain it to them because you guys could do it better than I could.
Omni, do you want to go or do I go?
You can go.
Okay, so that's basically when their metabolism is net negative. So like they're losing weight and losing protein in general. So our
Okay.
goal primarily is to feed them enough calories, enough protein, so they would recover appropriately. This is for cancer patients, for AIDS patients. So in this scenario, we don't care about the long-term effects of the food. We don't care about chronic effects of the food because we're gonna be feeding them this way for like a few weeks, a few months at best. We care what happens during those few weeks and few months. It's critical we feed them enough. It doesn't matter the quality of food. It doesn't matter if you can feed them salads, if it's healthy, but it will make them full on like
Okay, sure.
150
It's going to be the
calories. It
bare
doesn't
minimum.
matter. Sorry,
Sure.
what do you say?
Okay.
Yeah, so
Sure.
there
Like to
are
survive. Yeah.
there are conditions where the turning point is calories. Actually, like this I like
So you're basically
in the
just saying that
hospital where the
like
turning point is
so
going to
what's
be
your point?
determining. Okay, so in a hospital setting where the turning point of somebody's condition and it's life threatening is going to hinge upon the calorie like upon the nutrition that they get, more often than not is going to be calories. And more often than not, the junk foods are
Okay.
going to be able to satisfy that goal better than the whole foods.
All right, so quick question. So why eat junk food over, let's say, 1 pound of ribeye steak or 1 pound of ground beef, which has around 1,000 to 1,500 calories?
So
What is
wait a
the
sec. Wait a
issue?
second.
Why add in all those extra ingredients? Why are we having to go to junk food
So
and
so
that's
you
somehow
said one
helping?
pound. So like one pound of ribeye. You said right.
Yes, 1 pound of ribeye is around 1,000 calories.
Okay,
Yes.
so like I said earlier, I'll just equalize it. The potato chips, if we were to feed somebody a pound of potato chips, would be 2,500
Okay,
calories
but we
versus
have one
1,000
ingredient
calories.
versus all these other ingredients. We have one ingredient versus all these other ingredients. Why
So
would you go to the junk food?
why not?
Why is it a so? Why is it a so?
Why not? I've already explained why I would choose the junk food. I don't need to explain it again.
It's ridiculous.
How is it ridiculous?
But
Can you show me the absurdity?
okay, so we have an ingredient. We have no. We have a food with two macronutrients, fat and protein, and then we have junk food with sugar, fat, and protein, plus whatever else is on the added into it. Like I'm wondering why you think junk food is capable. Like why do you think that should be the option for a patient? I just don't understand it. It doesn't make really sense. I
Okay.
don't understand why you
So
equalize it.
so um, Dominic in
I
the.
think I can help explaining
Oh yeah, yeah.
a little
Give
bit
him
here
give him give
with
him your
clinical experience. Yeah.
yeah. Give him your
Um,
syllogism.
well,
Because it's more
I, mean,
comforting.
I can give
What's the
the syllogism later. The point is that that patients in a hospital setting, where um, the where the nutrition or the calories are the critical point. They are very ill. They have very advanced diseases, or which is the most common thing, are very old and are suffering from frailty. Um,
okay?
and in that case, they don't even have the energy um, to eat through a whole steak. They literally can't do it. So what they do in the hospital is they give them
Okay.
these drinks from most likely from Fresenius, if you're familiar with that brand. Fresenius Kabi. They're called Frizobin. Um,
Yeah.
and they are really high calorie, and
Yes.
they are also high in protein, and they have all essential nutrients.
And it's also important to
And
point out, just
and if the
sorry.
patients manage to drink 1 bottle a day, which those are really small bottles, right? They are like 200 milliliters. Um, that's a success because they are losing body mass fast, right? And so
So it's easier to
you
give
want to
them that.
stop that. And once the patient is able to consume solid food again, that adds an enormous step in quality of life additionally. Um, but they still don't
Sure.
have enough energy to eat a food that is very satiating. And so you would prefer slowly adding in highly processed, high calorie foods, in addition to the drinks that they are receiving, to up their calorie intake. And also you want to do it not too fast to avoid refeeding syndrome, but that's another issue. Um,
Okay.
and yeah,
So you're
and
saying it's easier to give them that than cut up ground beef or cut up steak. It's easier to give them that than steak, just cut up.
Yes, 100%.
Because you're saying the issue is chewing. Okay. 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 Sure. I guess you're right then. It's easier to give them that than the steak. But I also have another question because you said
Mm-hmm.
you had a tweet the other day where you mentioned that um, an Impossible Burger would be better than a regular burger without. Yeah, that's what you said. You said
Yeah.
Impossible
I
Burger.
take the position that if you took all of the beef in the food supply right now and replace it with impossible meat, uh, you would probably see population-wide reductions in cardiovascular disease.
And why do you believe that? Why do you believe that?
Because meat has been universally associated, causally associated with cardiovascular disease. Anytime
And
anytime you
it's
investigate
an
this,
association based study.
Yeah,
Loosely
nutritional
association.
epidemiology, correct.
Yes, loosely association-based studies. Okay,
No,
so
no, no,
that's
no, no,
your
no. Oh,
guideline.
I'm not sure why you're using the qualifier loose, but yeah, nutritional epidemiology, yes.
Because it is. It
How,
is.
how, how, how,
It is.
how?
Um, Forgive me, but I don't remember the video, but I
Whoa.
remember. Hold on. Okay, okay. Listen, I'm
Yeah.
saying that they. Okay, do you want to speak or?
No, no, no. You can go. I'm fine.
Okay, I'm saying that in these studies, they found that um, whatever it was, the connection between whatever they were trying to figure out, it hit like 2 out of 5 times. That's what I mean by loosely association-based studies. That's what I mean by what you're judging your rationale off of.
I'm.
I'm not the scientist, so I don't know technical term for all of it and whatnot. But
Oh
that's
yeah,
what I mean.
you might be referring to the video by John Ioannidis, where John Ioannidis
I'm not sure.
discusses the replicability of nutritional epidemiology. Yeah, we could just
Yeah,
put
so
that
maybe
aside for the
something like
moment.
that. Maybe something bigger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
uh, we,
Um,
we
but
we could put that aside for the moment. We actually do have intervention trials where animal foods are being replaced by like plant foods and processed foods, and we see reductions in risk. With that is actually concordant with the
okay,
epidemiology. We have one trial where
but
we
in
have
those studies, I have a
hard
question.
outcomes.
In those studies, are the plant food less calories because typically they are less calories than the nutrient dense form.
I believe in that study no, that both groups lost weight in that particular study, I think, but I think calories were largely balanced between the groups. But we have even more tightly controlled trials looking at risk factors where, say, red meat, for example, seems to unambiguously increase cardiovascular disease risk factors, even in tightly controlled settings. So we have the one
So
study by
naturally, it just
Ronald
has more
Krauss.
calories. So
Pardon me?
it has more calories, so naturally, of course. I mean,
Oh, no, 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 no.
it's
These
easy.
studies were designed in such a way that calories were balanced.
Okay, so they're eating a regular 2,000 calorie diet, and it's just red meat. That's the what would you call it?
Yeah, so I
That's the
could
red.
describe the study design to you, and see whether or not
Sure,
you agree with it.
that would be
So,
helpful.
the study design in this particular case was people were randomized to two groups, and within those groups there were three diets, and then they crossed over. So the two groups were high saturated fat, low saturated fat, and then the three groups within those groups were white meat, red meat, and mock meat, so basically processed plant protein. And universally, no matter what condition you were in, so that was true of the high saturated fat or low saturated fat. They all had a red meat or a meat condition, red meat condition, a white meat condition, and then a processed plant protein condition. And across the board, the closer you went to the processed plant protein condition, the better the risk, or the better the cardiovascular risk factors ended up being. Calories were
Okay, but
also
in these studies,
controlled.
okay, so you said calories were controlled.
Yeah, yeah, I
So
do believe that. Yeah, Matt would know more about the specifics on that trial, but I'm pretty sure that calories were controlled. Yeah.
yeah, I would love to see the specifics on that because I think most of these studies come down to calories. Simply lowering calories, of course, you're going to be less likely for disease as you're not overworking your body. So, you overwork your body, which is easier to do with carbs compared to meat, then you're going to eat, you know, you're going to crave more of the stuff you want, which is red meat, the more nutrient dense food. But whatever. So, you're
Uh,
basically saying that, yes, that's how I feel about it.
yeah. So let's, in my hypothetical scenario where we're replacing the meat in the food supply with impossible meat, I am assuming calorie for calorie.
Okay. And I don't understand what basis you can say, with what rationale you can say that adding ingredients makes something healthier.
Whoa, wait.
Because
So,
that's basically what you're saying.
okay, so define healthy.
Okay,
I just want
so
to know that we're on the
not
same page.
not
I'm not trying to trap you here. I just want to know whether or not we're on the same page. Like, just give me like a natural language, just definition of healthy. So it's something for me to work with here.
all right. So let's see. I mean, if someone's eating a steak, they're eating just fat and protein. But if someone is eating, let's say, an Impossible Burger, they're eating carbs. And what are inside carbs? Anti-nutrients, plant toxins, phytochemicals. Would you say those have no negative effect on the body?
I would grant you all of the mechanisms that you're going to propose and say that they're contradicted by the outcome data. So whatever you're going to propose, like, calcium uptake though, iron uptake though, zinc uptake though, like I'm just going to grant you all of that and say that it doesn't seem to matter for outcomes.
Doesn't seem to matter. Okay.
Yeah, so we actually
So,
we have studies investigating the long-term consequences of adhering to diets that would be high in these anti-nutrients, and they seem universally beneficial. So I just don't see where the negative effect comes into
oh, the
play.
benefits outweigh the negatives. The benefits outweigh the negatives. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, correct. Whatever negative effects, actually, like I'm not even fully sure there are negative effects. But for the sake of this argument, I'll just grant you that the mechanisms that you're talking about occur, and I'm not willing to give them a qualifier like positive or negative at this point. I'll just say that all of the mechanisms that you're proposing, they occur in vivo when people are eating foods. I'll just grant that they occur and say that they're contradicted by the outcome data. That's how I would handle that.
Okay. I believe we really just solved this. I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess this is the end of this. You really answered the question. You said they. This is so. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you just
I
asked
don't
me
know.
how I feel, and I told you how I felt. I mean, I'm just giving you answers.
Sure.
Um, yeah, so there's actually a really good
So,
review paper on anti-nutrients. I'll just shoot it to you in the VC text here. It's a really good review paper on anti-nutrients. Like they go through, I can't remember how many they go through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different anti-nutrients, and they basically just do a systematic review or kind of like a cursory review of the literature, investigating the relationship between the proposed outcomes that would be basically the outcomes that would be presupposed if the mechanisms were true, and they basically just investigate whether or not these outcomes occur if the mechanisms were anything that we should care about. And across the board, it seems to be not the case. Like they just seem to be like not that the anti-nutrients themselves are beneficial, but eating foods with those anti-nutrients seems to be beneficial.
okay. Yeah, I would disagree with that. I would disagree
Based
with
on
that.
what though? Like based on what? What's the source of the disagreement?
I mean, there's just been study after study showing the cogit. I mean, what you call it? There's just been study after study showing the deteriorating effect that anti nutrients have on the body. I mean, it's just been evidence in so many ways. Like I have, I think I have a few studies here actually.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you want to put them in the VC text, I'll be happy to take a look at them.
I'll do that. I'll do that. Like in this one, patients with autism, they had 3 times the level of oxalates than normal individuals.
Oh, wait a minute here.
This is a
You realize
cross-sectional
what
study.
you realize what that is, though, right? It's just oxalate levels measured in patients. So it could literally be a detriment in metabolism
Yeah, because
that
your
increases
body,
oxalates.
yeah, your
That
body
that's
produces oxalate.
it could literally be, and I'm pretty sure they discuss it. If it's the same paper I'm thinking of, in that paper, that metabolism of oxalates inside the body and exogenously is different in autism patients as a part of the pathology of
Yeah.
the condition.
So what you're doing right here is actually called a post hoc fallacy. So after the fact, you're looking and you're seeing oxalates are high. and these people have autism. I don't know if you're necessarily saying that that autism was caused by the oxalates, but if what Matt is saying is correct, they discuss in the paper that people with autism have impairments in oxalate metabolism, either overproduction or under excretion of consumed oxalate. So, I mean, like you might be able to take the position that oxalates would be contraindicated, perhaps in people with autism, depending on the specific mechanism for the increased oxalate. Yeah, you could probably take that position. We're not talking about people with autism, though. We're talking about the general population. In fact, in this particular conversation, we were talking about people in hospital. And you use like anti-nutrients as a justification for not feeding certain types of foods to people in hospital too. Like, so sticking to the population that we were discussing in this conversation, I don't think this meets the goalpost. I think
It's
this
right
is
in the abstract. It says it right there in the link.
where.
Whether this is a result of impaired renal excretion or an extensive intestinal absorption or both.
So I'll grant you that one, but I wanted to see what you have to say about this one. Okay, so in this study, it says we propose that inhibiting oxalate-induced whatever may prevent or mitigate progressive renal damage and and what do you call it, chronic kidney disease.
Well, I mean, people with chronic, like, oxalate is an end
Oxalate
product
metabolism is mediated by the kidney.
Yeah, well, oxalate excretion is mediated by the kidney.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like, people with chronic kidney disease, of course, their oxalate metabolism is going to be fucked up.
Sure.
So, like, again, we're not talking about people with chronic kidney disease. Like, we're not talking about exceptional cases.
So do you think? So I'm just curious. Like, do you think people are born with these, or you think people are
Born with what, though?
like? Do you think? Do you? No, I'm saying, are they born with these nutritionally what do you call it? At a disadvantage to consumption. Hold on. I'm trying to understand, why do you believe that so in this, hold on. Wait, can you repeat what you said about this study?
Yeah, the results are explained by detriments in oxalate metabolism.
Well, okay, so like, let's get the fuck out of the weeds here in this bullshit mechanistic garbage, because we literally have research studying people, yes it is, with people with chronic kidney disease looking at their actual outcomes, and people who consume more plant protein have better outcomes. So what the fuck explains that? Like, let's just ignore like the actual outcomes of the people.
Well, yeah, Matt. So yeah, I think you made the point. Like, if outcomes supersede mechanisms, we can speculate all day about mechanisms, but if the outcomes contradict the mechanisms,
what outcomes are we talking about here? What outcomes are we really talking
Survival.
about here?
yeah,
Survival.
Okay.
Death.
So we're talking about plant-based. You do realize that the majority of America, a society, is on a plant-based diet, right?
that's tangential to what he said. That doesn't interact with
Okay.
what he said.
What kind of
You're
plant-based
saying look at
diet?
the
You want to
outcomes.
define that? You want to tell me what the composition of that diet is?
Is the one with just lower calories that makes it a
No.
plant-based diet?
Oh my god, no. No, not at all. That's the point.
Are we talking about veganism? Like, what are we talking about? I don't
Well,
know.
dude, okay, the majority of people are on a plant-based diet. What do you think the composition of the
Yes.
majority of people's diet is like when it comes to...
Well, if it's
what-
mostly junk food, then
There you go.
okay, that's plant-based. But what are you talking about? That's
Dude.
plant-based.
Oh my god. So you're talking about what? Anti-nutrients in fruits and vegetables? Right? Like,
yes,
in...
it's in those two. Yes.
It's like, okay,
So now you're shifting to junk food as a major composition.
Yes. All those foods make up the common junk food we have today. Yes. So the majority of them.
Wait a second. In junk food, these would be less of a problem.
yeah, that's true actually.
By what metric? Just because they have lower.
Literally,
calories?
the processing involved in like the majority of junk food removes or like
Yes.
massively reduces.
Less sugar, less calories. Yes. Yes.
No,
No, not just
the
calories.
components that you have a problem with. These
Yeah.
quote anti-nutritional components.
So like when you
Yes,
process
yeah,
wheat,
listen.
for example, like if you look at whole wheat berries and then you look at like ground flour, like the flour has less phytate in it, for example.
Less phytate. Okay. Less phytate.
And yeah,
So I'm still trying to understand what outcomes are we talking about here, and why are you
Mortality.
disassociating
All cause mortality.
plant-based? Say it again.
All cause mortality, death, survival. Those are the
because
outcomes.
nobody's talking about replacing fucking everything with potato chips and fruit or soda and like that's plant-based, dude. That's just shifting the goalpost to some like no, that's not what we're talking about.
Okay, but I'm curious. So when you talk about a meat diet, the opposite, are you including junk food with that?
Depends on what we're talking about. If we're looking at analysis that accounts for
Majority
junk
of the
food,
time, you probably are. Yes. Okay, so I don't understand why you are not lumping yourself in with the plant-based. I mean, the average diet is plant-based. I mean, like
Wait.
it,
So no. I can see what he's doing here. So he's like, um, for all like so all diets like okay. So what he's saying is that the standard American diet is within the superset of plant-based diets. Um, that's what he's saying.
yeah,
It's equivocation, fallacy of
yes.
four terms.
You say that again, Dominic?
It's equivocation, basically.
Oh.
Or if you're talking,
Oh yeah,
classical logic, fallacy of four terms.
Yeah, so it's in formal logic. Yeah, it's an equivocation. So you're saying that okay, so you have this whole food plant-based diet. It is also within the superset of plant-based diets. Therefore, the standard American diet and the whole food plant-based diet are interchangeable, or they are the same thing. Yeah, that's an equivocation. That's a logical fallacy.
Okay, but I'm curious. Why did you say let's look at outcomes with the plant-based diet? When are we taking a look at the opposite side, a meat-based diet, just meat? Are we?
This is
Like
literally compared to like a higher ratio of plant compared to animal protein.
yeah. I mean, think about it this way. I have a question for you.
But in what context? We're talking about, okay, if they're eating meat, it's probably in a study where they're eating meat along with what else? A bunch of
Like
junk
no,
food, plant-based food,
No,
okay.
they are comparing
This is
quartiles.
accounting for calorie intake, body mass
looking
index,
for.
physical inactivity.
Okay, but you're still not mentioning that the majority of the rest of their diet is probably, the same stuff that you guys are eating.
What do you mean?
What?
Like here let me ask you a question. So you're very sort of sensitive to this idea of of calories, right? So you grant that when you take something out of the diet and you have to put something in its place, right? So you have to make a substitution when you're removing something from your diet, right? Like a substitution needs to take place. Can you grant me that?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So in the studies where we see like say red meat consumption going up, for example, we see red meat consumption going up. That means that like if you're assuming the background diet is this standard American plant-based diet, whatever the hell you want to characterize it as, if you're assuming that the background diet is this diet, when you're looking across the quantiles of intake and you're looking at the higher range of intake of meat, you are literally looking at people who are substituting more meat for less standard American diet, and their outcomes are worse. Can you explain why to me?
Because meat typically has more calories. That is, yes. Meat
No,
typically has more
because I can show you this. I can show you this even when the calories are lower in the upper quantiles. It holds true even when the calories are lower in the upper quantiles.
Right.
Oh,
I kind of want to hit back on that. Your calories thing. I hate this rhetoric. Calories are all that matter. Okay, so you're telling me that if you ate two diets and they had the same amount of calories, and you increased or decreased risk factors that we have studied extensively and validated through interventional, observational, every kind of evidence possible.
Association-based studies,
No,
epidemiology, yes. Yeah.
No,
I said
interventions.
every type. These are all validated across every type of study, including
sure.
interventional. And they
Okay, so
track with higher or lower risk of disease.
So it's validated. So
yes,
you can show me a study showing the cause mechanism effect for meat being the
No,
variable
well,
that
no,
is
no, no.
so
You
bad.
you don't
okay.
you don't need that for validation. You don't need that for this site for this
That's
sort
not
of
what I'm getting at.
validation.
I'm getting at the underlying like philosophy behind your calories are all that matter. So again, if you have two diets exactly matched for calories, but one of these diets increases one or more than one, say blood pressure or blood sugar or some other component or risk factor that we know directly relates to the risk of disease outcomes, then their outcomes would be the same.
Okay. Wait, repeat the question. Repeat the question one more time.
So again, if you have two calorie matched diets, one of them either has no effect on these risk factors or decreases them, and the other increases them. You're going to tell me that they're going to have the same outcomes because their calories are matched.
But how would you blame meat in that instance of them doing whatever you're talking about?
Because it does that. Because it literally increases risk factors.
So fat and protein does that. Fat and protein does that, right? Okay, sure. Okay,
So, okay, like the thing is that Matt, I like based on what he said earlier on in the discussion, I don't think he takes the position that calories are all that matter, because like he seemed to have an objection even when I equated calories to substituting sugar for steak, for example. So he had an objection to that. That kind of implies that he thinks there's more at play than just calories. Right. So yeah, like I don't think he necessarily takes the position. He might take the position if if we're talking about like entire foods. I'm really not sure. He would need to clarify for us like what exactly he thinks the source of diet-related disease risk comes from.
Okay, so are we ignoring that sugar raises blood pressure? Or are we ignoring that sugar?
Oh, he's just asking you if this is being overlooked, and the answer to the question would be no.
That's built into the hypothetical. It still applies.
So are we okay? So we're overlooking anti-nutrients, phytochemicals, plant toxins. We're overlooking sugar. We're overlooking added ingredients.
No.
Where's any of that being overlooked?
I'm trying to understand how it's being taken into account. I'm trying to understand how are they making these connections?
What connections? We're kind of lost right here. Like, what are you talking about?
Okay, so you're saying, okay, so I think how this started was he said let's focus on outcomes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in any discussion that we're concerned about outcomes, I would rather focus on how outcomes change with respect to a certain intervention or exposure.
I'm just saying typically that if you replace any food if you replace meat with a plant-based food, it's typically gonna have less calories and less fat. And I don't see how you can make the connection that based off of
that depends on what the food is.
Yeah, have you ever had avocado?
Depends. Yeah, it totally depends on what the food is.
You said it depends on what the food is?
Yeah. I mean, some are less calorie dense, some are more calorie dense. Like a freaking 30-gram handful of nuts is equivalent to 100 grams of meat worth of calories. Like,
yeah, it really depends on what the substitution is.
Okay, but
and nuts are high in fat.
One piece of meat or just some typical junk food. I don't even know. I'm kind of lost. I forgot where this conversation even came from. I forgot where we started at. If someone can remind me.
Wanted to know how we came to the conclusion regarding outcomes?
I think
Question
you
mark?
brought up anti-nutrients.
Well,
That's kind of what started this branch.
Well, the question that I pose to him is that when we see people substitute more meat for standard American diet, why do we see risk go up rather than going down?
Right.
If red meat actually would lower risk when making that substitution, why would we see the risk actually go up, even when at the upper ranges of meat intake, the total overall calories are lower? I could give you that paper too. I mean, it's no fuzz off my peaches.
Because they're still consuming addictive carbohydrates. That's would be my answer to that.
No, they're
Well, no.
replacing carbohydrates.
They're replacing carbohydrates.
Okay, so they're replacing carbohydrates with what? Meat?
Yes.
Okay, and what remains in the diet? Addictive carbohydrates. I mean, it's really simple. I mean,
No. So all dietary variables are going down, and meat is going up, and risk is going up. Why is that the case?
okay. I mean, if we just look at like, I mean, what's the typical junk food that someone eats? Like, what's typical junk food that someone consumes?
Yeah, but like they're consuming less of it if they're replacing it with meat. Whatever the answer to that question would be, they're consuming less of it when replacing it with meat. So if you want to posit that diet contains like addictive carbohydrates, okay, well
Right.
that whole
Right.
diet is being systematically replaced with meat, more meat, and risk is going up. Why do we see that?
Because because meat has more calories. This that yes.
No, but I
meat
can
has more
show
calories.
that this holds true
Typically
even
has
when
more
there are
calories.
fewer calories. I can show that this holds true even when there are fewer calories in the upper quantiles of intake of meat intake specifically.
Okay, but over
And
what
we've
time,
already
though? Like, how long?
substantiated
Are
we've
these
already
studies over what time?
substantiated that
Like,
meat has less
over what
calories
time
than
limit?
junk food.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm curious. What time length are these studies done over? How are they like arriving at this conclusion?
Here. So
You think the JPHC?
I was thinking, yeah, JPH.
Their calories
Okay,
go
2
down
weeks.
across intakes.
Yeah,
Okay,
here,
some
I got it,
people.
I got it. Obsidian for the win. I'm gonna put it in the VC text.
Let's see. This one was 14 years. The JPHC follow up.
Yeah, that's a long follow up actually. That's not bad. So yeah, if you look at table 2, meat, red meat specifically, 51% increase in the risk of heart disease. I can post
Wait,
that.
I don't think he's following.
Yeah, that's fine. I can just put it in the text.
I'm
I can
listening.
put it in the VC text. So you
Are
see,
you looking at the red stormblessedj? Are you looking at the red channel VC text?
Yes, I see it.
yeah. So
Association between meat intake and mortality due to. Okay, so
and it just to capture any criticisms that you might have about how this was done, here's the adjustment model. And here are the subject characteristics within this particular cohort. This is looking at the men. And you can see that body mass index was the same. Alcohol consumption was actually lower in meat eaters. Smoking was the same across all groups. Vegetable consumption was the same. Fruit consumption was largely the same. Fish consumption was the same. Dairy consumption was the same. Sodium was different by like 200 milligrams. Diabetes was actually lower in the higher quantiles of meat intake. Hypertension was lower in the upper quantiles of meat intake. Physical activity was the same. So like everything's pretty well balanced, and the only food group that they don't disclose here are grains, which in this population was a Japanese population. Most likely this substitution is substituting meat for rice. Most likely.
In the other the substitution analysis, they give that, and you can see across as meat intake increases, white rice intake decreases, I believe.
Okay, yeah. So in another publication, they actually do include that data, and you can see that that is the substitution that's being made at the upper quantiles in red meat intake. Like that is the substitution being made is like white rice.
I think they just say refined carbohydrate.
Yeah, so within the context of this population, yeah, that'd be like white rice. So basically, you replace white rice with meat and your risk goes up despite all like, despite most confounders and most covariates actually favoring the meat condition, like the upper quantile, the quartile 4 for meat intake, a lot of these covariates are actually favorable for that, but you still see the increase in risk. And they're eating less of the quote-unquote addictive carbohydrates. Like, why do we see this association?
Okay, but can you tell me um, how much higher is this risk and how much more
50%. 50%.
50%? Okay.
Yeah, the
And how much
relative risk
more?
is 1.1 or 1.51.
What's the
And so like let's say,
get the numbers.
when they take out meat, I mean no when they add meat, um, what else are they eating along with it?
Well,
Basically, yeah.
yeah, you can look at the table. You can answer your own question by looking at the table in the VC text. The last
Okay.
table that I posted, you can see what they're eating. Yeah, that would be a 34% reduction in risk. Going from the highest meat intake to the lowest meat intake, that would be like a 34% reduction in risk. And I'll remind you that these results actually kind of agree with the randomized controlled trial data. Like the Lyon diet heart study is what I would point to if we're looking at hard endpoints like myocardial infarction and stuff like that, where they like replaced meat, butter, and cream with basically bread, like legumes. And calories were pretty balanced. It was like bread, fruit, legumes, and margarine were like the primary substitutions. Yeah. And you
So
still see this
is
reduction in risk.
so this is conclusive enough evidence for you guys to just drop meat and go along with
Well,
continuing to eat plants.
it's an epistemic question, right? Like it depends. It is more reasonable to believe this than to believe the opposite, given the weight and consistent direction of the evidence. If there is evidence that supersedes this, I will revise my position, but I haven't seen it yet.
All right. So, all right. Just a quick question. If
Mm-hmm.
meat is so bad, um, why do you think all these, self-proclaimed carnivores are claiming to have success?
Survivorship
Well, I guess
bias.
it depends on how you define success, because
Yeah.
if success is short-term weight loss, like you can achieve that through any like it's so.
Well, we're talking
Have you
about
ever heard
remission of
about?
diseases. We're talking about stuff here.
We're not talking about
Like
diseases. There's no
success is in
research on long-term
success
weight
is
loss.
not
We are,
disclosing your
we are
diarrhea
also,
and then slowly reintroducing fruits and pressure cooked rice into your diet.
okay, you brought up something negative about it, and I brought up something positive that I've seen in most people. So,
Well, here's the
um,
thing. These are uncontrolled anecdotes from people out in the wildy just going on this diet, and you don't know whether or not this is actually a generalizable effect because there's huge potential for survivorship bias. Like what's like there could be, for every one carnivore with a success story, there could actually be 3, 4, 5, 6 people who tried the diet and got fucked up and just went off the diet. They're like, that's stupid.
I mean, there's plenty of like. If you actually
so
look for that,
when did
there's
you say that
plenty of
a lot
it.
of people, when did you say that a lot of people are getting fucked up on a plant-based diet?
I'm
Uh,
sure that there are people who go on plant-based diets and get fucked up. Yeah. I would actually grant that.
Raw vegans, lol.
okay. So,
Yeah.
okay, another question. So, why in any of the carnivore studies have there not been any of these negatives shown?
Wait, which
Wait,
carnivore
wait,
study?
wait a
There
second.
hasn't been.
You
We'll
used
clarify here.
Okay,
There
you
has
used
not
a
been
plural.
a single study on carnivores that looks at outcomes. Not one. Not a single one.
There
I don't
was
think
a
these people
survey.
even have
Yeah, yeah.
follow-ups.
There was
They've
a
been
survey.
cross-sectional.
There was a cross-sectional. Well, it for some proportion of the people within that survey study,
Yeah, right. You could technically say there
you
was,
could
quote,
yeah.
follow-up.
You could technically
data.
say that there was temporality, so it doesn't quite fall into the category of cross-sectional. It'd be kind of fucky cross-sectional. Because there are people with pre and post data within that data set. The only problem is that if you think nutritional epidemiology sucks, this should be the least convincing evidence to you, because in nutritional epidemiology, we can have verified outcomes and verified exposure, especially if we're looking at biomarkers. This is self-reported intake and self-reported exposure and self-reported outcomes. They did not measure rates of diabetes in these people. They did not measure rates of fucking, psychiatric outcomes, neurological outcomes, cognitive outcomes, all of the things that they measured. They did not actually measure those things. They not verified. They didn't. They measured them. They used a measurement method. It was a shitty measurement method. They did not verify the outcomes. There is no way to verify that these benefits are actually occurring within this data set, because everything is self-reported. Now, the thing is with nutritional epidemiology, which you, for as far as I can tell, tried to dismiss earlier, you can have verified exposure and verified outcomes. Why should this supersede that?
By verified exposure and verified outcomes, what do you mean by that?
So verified exposure would be like we measure somebody's blood and we can see what the hell they were eating. Like, say, linoleic acid exposure, for example, like, because it can only come from the diet, we can measure how much linoleic acid people have in their bodies, and that is a proxy for what they are eating, because it's actually a direct measurement of what they're eating. And then we could measure their actual outcomes, and we can verify them because we can look at death records. Like, we can look at medical records, we can look at death records. In this, it's just like, it's all self-reported. I don't know what to make of this study. Like, I don't know what it's trying to tell me, because it's all self-reported.
We can infer from it that there are some people who survived on a carnivore diet.
Yeah, basically, we can.
What was it, 6 months was the follow-up?
Yeah, I mean, like,
quote follow-up.
But here's the thing, though. Even if we granted all of the outcomes, all of like the disease outcomes, the degree to which we would qualify this as a success is debatable if you actually look at the biomarker outcomes, because carnivore was actually associated with like detriments in a lot of cases among the biomarker outcomes. For example, like coronary artery calcification actually went up on the carnivore diet. LDL-C actually went up on the carnivore diet. So like,
a lot of stuff was unchanged, I'm pretty sure, even with massive weight loss. Remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Sad. That's
a lot of this
a
shit.
Good thing.
they like, among the people with pair match data, they actually had really significant weight loss. It was like something like 9 kilograms of weight loss or something like that. Really significant. And their markers didn't change at all. And it's like the fucking carnivore diet actually resists the benefits of weight loss. It's like, what the hell? Even if we were to grant that all of this self-reported data is actually, if it's valid and accurate, like, it looks like the carnivore diet actually resists the benefits of weight loss, because a lot of these markers did not go down despite losing 9 kilograms. Like, holy shit. Okay, like, in any other study, when people leave... Like, just 1 second. Like, in any other study where people are losing 9 kilograms, you see results better than this.
Huge changes.
Yeah.
Okay, what would you say this is an entirely different setting, in which they're excluding a whole different food group. They're excluding carbohydrates, which we already know. I
would just say it's not a favorable setting then.
Yeah.
It's not a favorable setting?
Yeah, like, you're saying that, these people are in a different setting? It's like, well, clearly whatever setting they're in is not working for them. It's working against them.
Qualification on carbohydrates.
Okay, so compared to your setting, and who says your setting is the best optimal setting?
I did not affirm that. That's a straw man and a red herring.
I don't even think we gave a setting. Like,
No.
What?
But you're saying that these biomarkers or whatever, all these indications of what's normally shown in the context of your diet, maybe.
Well, no, I said weight
Whereas,
loss. Like if you saw weight loss like this in most any other study, you would see
Yeah,
results that
regardless
were
of the
more,
composition.
yeah, almost regardless of the composition of the diet. It could be junk food, and you would actually see
right,
changes
but
in
they would
markers that
still
were
have
more
to,
impressive
they're
than this.
ignoring that a carnivore diet completely removes carbohydrates. I think that's the fundamental thing.
Right,
Where
that's
Okay, so
basically
so
what
that actually works against it. So also including the conditional that if the diet, including the conditional that if the diet is also removing carbohydrates, that actually works against it, because if that is part of the quote unquote environment or setting, it's clear that it's actually working against them.
working against them
Yeah, because
compared
they lost
to
9 kilograms of weight and didn't really change their biomarkers that much. That is not something that you would typically see in similar literature.
I'm
Well,
not
I
I'm not
kind
too
of like,
educated
I always think of
on how this ends.
whenever
It's
people
still in
bring
the
up,
concept of your diet.
what was
So
Oh,
that?
well, we're not talking about my diet. We're not talking about our diets here.
whatever diet that's not carnivore has carbohydrates, fat, and protein, all that stuff
So?
intermixed, intertwined in it. This, so I'm saying this is more controlled, and it should be examined as
No, if you think this is
It's less
controlled,
controlled.
this is less
He just
controlled.
explained how it was less controlled.
Like this is like some of the worst controlled data that I've seen within this domain of research. And actually, they're not removing them. If you look at the actual table that shows like what they're eating, like most people were eating fruit
yeah,
twice a week, or not most people, but there were people who were eating
yeah,
fruit twice a week. There were people who were
limiting as
eating.
much as possible. Yeah,
So like I just like
So
the
hold on,
idea that this is more controlled is absolutely absurd.
I guess.
I kind of
I
want to
can bring
like,
up other stuff.
I
They're
always,
too
I always,
old.
I always think of this example when people bring up the carnivore survey and a collection of anecdotes, whatever you want to call it, is like the professor that did the self end of one experiment on purpose to show how fucking ridiculous it is to use only weight loss as a metric of the health value of a diet, and ate only
Who says they're only
Twinkies.
using weight loss?
He fucking ate only Twinkies and saw improvements in virtually all of his fucking metrics because he lost weight.
Sure.
Does that mean that
Sure.
that's a good diet? Like, just because he saw
We're still talking
improvements?
about your
But
diet.
here. Let me really clearly explain this. So in situation A, we have people losing weight eating nothing but Twinkies and seeing massive reductions in their biomarkers. In situation B, we have people losing weight on the carnivore diet and their biomarkers
Right,
not
doesn't
really
that go
shifting
against
that
you?
much.
I'm trying to understand.
No, that goes against your
You're,
position,
you're
not
the one
mine.
placing so much, you're the one placing so much importance on these biomarkers. So you're saying that, okay, this person ate Twinkies, and he lost weight, and he had better biomarkers. How could he have
So
better biomarkers?
you're the one
If
who
you're
Because he
saying he's
lost.
basically eating
you're the one who
unhealthy
submitted
food,
this
right?
study. You're the one who
He lost
submitted
weight.
this study as evidence. If okay, so you're saying the biomarkers don't matter. So you're the one who submitted this study as evidence of a benefit, right? You said the carnivore diet studies.
Yes.
All they looked
Okay.
at was biomarkers.
Well, they looked at biomarkers and self-reported disease changes too. Yeah, they trifurcated them into 3 categories. There was resolved, improved, and unchanged. And oh no, it was actually
We're just gonna ignore that. We're gonna ignore that they reported health benefits, high satisfaction,
Self-reported.
cardiovascular disease were very variably. I mean, isn't all
Variably
this stuff
affected.
Isn't that study that you just linked me how this association between meat intake and more mortality, how
And-
isn't
and-
this self-reported?
let's actually appreciate for a moment that this is a sample of a population that is already heavily susceptible to survivorship bias. So like these are all of the
Now
people.
we're biased.
No. I said survivorship
We're learning
bias.
about our diseases.
So do you know what survivorship bias is? Can you recreate for me what survivorship bias is, just so I understand that we're on the same page?
You can explain it to me. I probably don't have.
Okay. So survivorship bias is what happens when a group of, say, people are overlooked after a selection event. So a selection event in this case would be people getting their dicks knocked in the dirt by the carnivore diet and going off the diet and not being included in the survey. So this survey has a high likelihood of actually only sampling people for whom the diet worked, and we don't actually know how well the diet works.
Right. So their inclusion criteria was actually that you needed to be following the diet for more than 6 months,
which further increases the likelihood of survivorship bias.
I mean, so what are you looking for them to do? I'm just curious.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Give
I'm
people
just
who have
telling
been
I'm just
doing
telling
it
you
for
about the
three-
limitations
so
of the
if people been
paper.
on the diet for 3 months.
No, I'm
if
just
people
telling you
been
about the
on diet for
limitations of the
3 months,
paper.
2 weeks?
no, you
I-
could
But what-
serve if
what
you
would you-
like wanted an honest representation, you would not exclude people that dropped off.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you'd get an idea
Understood.
of how actually feasible.
But if they dropped off, they're not doing the diet. I don't.
That's the point.
That's the point.
Okay, so they were doing the diet, then they dropped off.
Yeah, well, the thing is that we don't know.
What's the chances of someone doing that?
No, but
following
that's the thing. This is what survivorship, like, we don't know. That's why that data would need to be included, so we could actually make a judgment about it.
What if it's just not gonna happen? People are not.
We don't know that.
satisfied,
We don't know that. We don't know
We
that.
don't know that.
We don't know that.
So we'll ignore the Reddit communities. We'll ignore the
I was gonna say, if you ignore Reddit communities, you can find plenty of examples of people like, holy shit, I shit my brains out and I fucking dropped off the diet, or my dick stopped working and I dropped off the diet.
Dude, yeah, there are a lot of cases where you find those stories. Like, dude,
Yeah, I would say
okay,
that,
okay,
but-
go on.
Facebook
Carnivore
groups,
subreddits
lol.
are typically populated with people who are in remission from their diseases. They're getting better.
We
They're
don't
feeling
know
better
that.
than they've ever felt.
I mean, we don't know how well the diet
I
works.
don't see these on vegan stuff. Okay.
Yes, I see plenty of these from vegans too, and they suffer from the same survivorship bias. Like,
Say it again? You said
I
you
see
don't
I see the exact same thing in vegan communities where people are like, "Oh, I went vegan and this disease went away. Oh, I went vegan and my biomarkers improved." Those
I don't
types of
see it
stories
daily.
are
You see it literally daily.
those type.
Wait.
Having Some
I-
newfound revelation. Like it's.
I think
like they
I think we need to roll it back a step. Stormblessed.
Literally
Do you-
23 pages
yeah.
of success stories on Forks Over Knives website. Like, what the fuck?
Wait, Stormblessed. Do you know how studies work and why controlling is important?
Good question.
Say it again one more time.
Do you know how controlling in studies works?
And why we
I'm
do it.
not well versed. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not well versed in this type of thing. I'm just.
Well, I guess you don't need to be any of those experts.
No, you just
But,
need to
like,
get the general gist. Not you don't need to be precise about the definition or anything. We're
so,
not
like,
gonna.
how people are pooled for a study? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, and how the data is tailored pre-hoc essentially.
I might be a little ignorant on it.
Oh, it's so
I might be a little
okay.
ignorant on it.
So if you're going to do like a randomized controlled trial, for example, you take a random sampling of people, you're trying your best to create you're trying your best to create a condition where, like, you have possible world A and possible world B. So you have a group of people who are randomized to one condition and a group of people who are randomized to another condition. And the aim of doing that is to try to figure out, okay, if we had just one change in possible world A and no change in possible world B, the control group, what would happen in these two possible worlds, right? Like, that's what we're trying to approximate when we do randomization and control. So in this scenario, like, say we randomize people to the carnivore diet or not, right? Say we randomize people to the carnivore diet or a standard diet, whatever diet we want to compare it to. So we have our two possible worlds here. This would actually tell us, say we found out that the carnivore diet actually had an attrition rate of about 80%, meaning that 80% of people dropped off the diet because they could not handle it. And then the remaining 20% of people actually could handle it for more than 6 months. like, that is the type of study that we would need to do to ascertain how feasible this diet is in the real world when people are randomly allocated to it. And that is not something that we can figure out from the data that we have. Like, just the anecdotes is not enough because we don't know what the attrition rates were. Because the people who are not on the diet are not reporting being on the diet.
The point is we can only make inferences.
The majority of people in the world are on a plant-based diet. That's the thing. So
That doesn't matter. Look,
doesn't
Stormblessed.
matter.
We can only make
We're talking
inferences.
about randomized control tests. So when you pull from a group of people, it's likely that they're gonna be people on a plant-based diet. I don't understand. Like,
No. But okay.
We're
so
talking about studies in general right
the
now.
control
Just
control group
basics.
could be anything. The control group could be
No
anything.
specifics. Yeah.
You can have a wash-in phase.
Oh yeah. You can also include a wash-in phase where you take them off of the diet and then you you can introduce them to some new diet. So like you could even have a carnivore wash-in, right? Where you take people off, you take everybody in the sample and then you run them in on a carnivore diet, and then in one group you keep them on the carnivore diet, and in the other group you put them back on the standard American diet and you see what happens. Like, just to see like how biomarkers change. Or you could put them on a plant-based diet. Like, you could do anything.
Sure. Something
Like
that would be helpful. Sure.
I think the issue here is that we're trying to explain that the data, we cannot make very solid inferences from the carnivore data that is available because it is too heavily susceptible to bias.
Wait, we can already take it a step back. Like the point is we can only make inferences about data points that we actually have.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if you have a survey, first of all with a self-selected sample, and second where you have an exclusion criterion, like that they must have followed the diet for 6 months, then you are censoring data points that are crucial for making the inference that you are looking to make.
Yeah, I think that was a really good explanation.
All right, so just curious about one more thing. This study right here. So, do you think that it bodes? Is it a good thing for meat or a bad thing for meat that all essential nutrients can be found in it? Such as in the study shows.
This is not a study.
Some such. What is it for me?
It's a review.
What it is?
It's a review paper.
A review. So is it not valid? Is it not something I can?
Oh God, it's by Amber.
No, it's not that it's not valid. She might like Amber O'Hearn. I'm familiar with her. I've had conversations with her. It might be the case that a carnivore diet can provide all nutrients. That very well may be the case. I don't see how that interacts with anything that we said. I don't see how it interacts with anything that we said.
Okay.
Because actually, like, let me show you this move. Let me show you this move. I'll grant you that a carnivore diet provides all essential nutrients. So what? I have a multivitamin on I have a multivitamin on my dresser. It provides all essential nutrients.
But it doesn't provide you with calories along with it as well. That's obviously an inconvenience, I would say.
If he eats a diet and then puts the multivitamin on top of it, problem solved.
Yeah, problem solved.
It's an inconvenience, yes, but it's an inconvenience. I would say.
So?
But,
is it really? Taking a multivitamin compared to preparing meals is an inconvenience.
Well, no. Wait. Well, here. Like, does the health value of a diet hinge on the convenience?
I would
like
say
what kind of work is the convenience doing?
Wait, repeat it again.
What kind of work is the convenience doing for you? Like, why does the convenience factor matter?
I mean, this is
okay,
actually,
so the average.
If it does, that's an argument for processed diets.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. If more convenient is better, that's an argument for like Wendy's and Burger King.
No, but convenient and actually fulfills your nutritional needs at the same time.
The multivitamin in my Wendy's meal fulfills all my nutritional needs.
Food, a ribeye steak can fulfill half of your calorie needs, can give you ample fat for satiation. It can give you all essential nutrients compared to whatever. I
Well,
mean,
no,
Well,
junk
that's
food.
not what that
no,
paper
no,
showed. Dude,
that's not true.
that's not even what that paper showed that you just sent me. That paper showed something completely different. Like she had to reach. Dude, look at fucking table 1. She had to reach to make this actually nutritionally adequate. She had to put in Parmesan cheese for the calcium. She had to put in beef tongue for the fucking vitamin C. She had to include oysters for the zinc because beef wasn't good enough. It's like it's like no, just a ribeye steak is not satisfying your nutritional needs, even by the goalpost that you just set with the paper that you cited.
But the paper also says that studies on individuals eating only meat did not reveal nutrient deficiencies, and some such nutrients are not commonly eaten in high enough amounts to meet recommended intake. So what do you think that says about meat?
Well,
We know
dude,
meat is highly bio.
the study that they're talking about had a 6-month quote unquote follow up. Like some of these nutrient deficiencies take like years to manifest.
Take like years to manifest.
Well, like depending on how much vitamin
Talk
C
about
you get,
Yeah,
like
all fat soluble vitamins
But-
take a
but meat-
long,
meat has
long time.
Meat has vitamin C though.
Yeah. But the thing is that like it takes 6.5 milligrams to rescue scurvy, and if you're eating nothing but ribeye steaks, it's not clear to me
Yeah.
that you're actually going to be getting enough vitamin C. Maybe you would, but the thing is that vitamin C has two functions in the body. One, it is used for collagen synthesis, and in the other, it participates in the antioxidant defense system. With collagen synthesis, you need a very tiny amount of vitamin C, but for the antioxidant defense system, you need like 100 to 150 milligrams of vitamin C per day. You're not getting that from meat. Like you're just not. Full stop.
So if you take a ribeye steak and you fulfill your calorie needs with that, you are so fucked on like 10 nutrients. Like that's even eating a lean steak, which
would be more nutrient dense.
Content.
Yeah.
Yes. Like your folate
Repeat
is
what
like
you
a
said?
quarter
Okay,
of the
that's not true.
requirement. Your vitamin D is 10%. Your vitamin K is 12%. Your vitamin D is less than 30%. Your calcium is 7%.
But-
Like,
Are you forgetting Are you forgetting this is all in the context of your diet, right?
what?
What do you mean?
The recommended. You're saying the recommended daily intake. This is what we're going off of.
No, I'm actually, to make my point about vitamin C, I was not actually referring to the RDA. I was referring specifically to vitamin C depletion repletion studies that were done in like the 1960s and 70s.
Okay, so
It takes 3 months. It takes 3 months of a vitamin C depleted diet to fully deplete vitamin D to the point where scurvy symptoms develop, and it takes 6.5 milligrams to rescue scurvy symptoms. Now, if they're eating, say, just above what it takes, like if they're just say if you're on 0 vitamin C, it takes 3 months. Now, say you only get 1 or 2 milligrams of vitamin C. Maybe it takes 8 months. Maybe it takes 10 months. I actually made a calculator. I'll just post that in the. I'll just post that. I made a vitamin C calculator that actually will tell you this. If I can find it. Yeah, here it is. So you just so how much? So okay, yeah. I'll put it in the VC text. This is the vitamin C calculator that I made. You need to make a new copy in order to use it. So let's say we only get 1.3 milligrams of vitamin C per day on a carnivore diet. Let's see, or what is it, like 1?
Oh man,
yeah, like if we get 0.5 milligrams, days to scurvy is 106. If we get 0.3 milligrams, days to scurvy is like 94. I think if we get 1 or 2, it's like 130 days. If we only get 4 milligrams, it's 234 days till scurvy. Like, it just depends on how much you're eating. It's not clear to me that the average carnivore living off of ribeyes is actually going to get enough vitamin C, and it's not clear to me that scurvy symptoms would present themselves within a 6-month period, and all we have is data on 6-month carnivores, other than people just like just.
But
It's not even
in that study,
that's
it
not even
was
close to the only.
that 3.2, that 3.2 and 4.5 milligrams of vitamin C was enough to prevent scurvy, and the body consumes an estimated minimum of 8 to 10 milligrams of vitamin C per day. Did you see the paper that I listed where it shows that meat contains vitamin C?
Yeah, I can grant you that meat contains vitamin C, but I would not grant that it would provide an adequate amount. What kind of meat actually provides enough vitamin C? I know there's thymus gland, which can provide probably about 80 milligrams. I don't know any carnivores who are consistently eating thymus gland.
This just says grain finished beef and grass
did
finished
she-
beef.
Where is that even coming from? Chronometer data has none in a ribeye.
Oh, I can explain that. With
They don't have data on it.
Yeah, they didn't even collect vitamin C data with the original USDA database, so they're all going to read 0, but it's some non-zero number, but it's very, very low.
Oh,
They
maybe.
just show you the paper on it. It shows you the paper on it. Well above the requirements for
Preventing
the link you were-
scurvy.
Yeah, preventing scurvy.
If that's the only thing.
Yeah, I mean, like,
So, but what? So how are you saying they're deficient though? How are you saying they would be? By what measure could they be deficient? I mean, I'm not saying any carnivores, their outbreak of scurvy or anything being reported.
well,
at all.
here,
Are you sure about that? I've seen a few examples. There was a fucking
I
celebrity
think you said
that
you
like
wanted to.
thought he was cool for doing it and literally got scurvy. Like, what?
Never. I'm sure he
So-
was accurately following the diet to the T. And
well, here's the thing. This goes back to the control problem. We don't know, right? We don't know anything about this diet, right?
There's a lot
About
we
the
don't know.
long-term
There's a lot
effects
we
of
don't
this
know, but
diet.
All I know is that meat doesn't have anti-nutrients, phytochemicals, and plant toxins.
So
It
what?
doesn't have all the.
I'll grant-
It just has
act-
certain proteins.
I will grant it all to you. Why
That-
should I
that's what we
care?
do, though.
Why should I
But
care?
why should you trust all this other intermingled stuff along? Like, why use that as your basis for this?
What does that even mean?
I mean, in this one study, it's in old people for one. So like 45 people. I mean, like
That's
let's
when
just say all of
diseases
this shit.
occur.
Wait. Your criticism against the paper that I shared earlier was that it was an older population. Of course, it was a
It's
fucking
various
older.
criticism I can say about it. It's various criticism about the paper. I can
No. Wait. But let's stick with this criticism for the time being. You're saying that the criticism is that the people in the study were older. Well, yeah. I mean, if you want to study cardiovascular disease rates, what you want to study people between the ages of 15 and 25? If you want to study cardiovascular disease, you have to study a population who's susceptible to getting it, which is people between the ages of like 45 and 75. That's when you're most likely to see events.
All right.
Like, I'm not trying to be a dick here, but you are out of your league in this conversation. Like, you don't know enough about the basic bit shit to even have a conversation with us about this.
You're right. I probably don't. But I said simply that it's not anything conclusive here that would. I don't know. It just seems like
I think it's debatable.
Something
I
else.
think people are not familiar with the magnitude of the evidence supporting this. Like, we've thrown a few studies here and there. I don't think
They're not
understand
yet.
how consistent.
They're not even fully representative. Like, they're not fully representative. Like the data on this is overwhelming. Like, in virtually every
So-
population you
So
investigate.
you think the major problem in society today is meat? Like that's
No,
causing all
no.
the disease?
Major
No.
problem? No.
No.
So is it overeating? Is it what is it?
Ethically, I think it is.
Yeah. To a large degree, I think overeating.
Okay,
This is
what-
where I would
what
actually
food
agree with you on the
has-
calories thing. I'm trying to come to a point of resolution. Like, I would actually agree with you on the calories thing. Largely on a population level, I think overconsumption of calories is probably one of the primary drivers of most of the diseases that we are, or most of the chronic diseases that we're seeing. Yeah. So, like, I think we could probably agree on that.
But would you say carbohydrates are more addictive than meat? Would you say that?
I'm not. I don't have any attitudes about it. I don't have any attitudes about it one way or the other.
I don't.
Yeah,
No, I
attitude,
don't. Because like if we
you
take
can't
something,
say it's not.
if we take something like Kevin Hall's study,
Oh yeah.
that would very strongly suggest that carbohydrates were addictive if that were the case, and it would show a difference in energy intake.
Well,
flavors.
Here, Matt, there is actually a rebuttal to that position. If you read Kevin Hall's paper on plant-based versus animal-based, the plant-based diet, they consumed fewer calories per gram, but they consumed more grams of total food. So there might actually be something toward carbohydrates contributing to some kind of hyperphagic effect. But the thing is that diet selection is going to be food selection is going to be the thing that actually determines and adjudicates whether or not that diet is actually going to lead to negative outcomes. So, like, despite perhaps this diet having some kind of hyperphagic effect or leading to more grams of total food consumed, they lost way more weight and ate far fewer overall calories than the animal-based diet. So, like, I just don't think the addiction angle makes a whole heck of a lot of sense here, especially, like, even if it were true, it seems very obvious and it seems very clear that there are types of diets that it probably wouldn't matter for.
Okay, so I mean, everybody has different mindsets or whatnot, but I was just saying generally, do you think that carbohydrates are more addictive than meat? I think that
I
think it totally depends on
yeah.
what the context is. Well, a lot of the time, I think a problem is a lot of the time when people say carbohydrates, they're not talking about just carbohydrates. You're talking about hyperpalatable foods with both large proportions of carbohydrates and fat and added salt and added flavor, whatever. Like, you are not in any aspect isolating carbohydrates.
Would you say the high glycemic carb chart is valid? Would you say it's accurate?
Well, it depends on like what exactly.
As a concept, I mean, glycemic index. Yeah, sure, it's valid. Like that, it has a purpose. It's to measure the response.
I think he's talking about the paper that he just linked. That it seems to be attempting to relate the addictiveness of food to the glycemic index. The thing is that it's going to be difficult to disentangle the effects of processed foods even there, because boiled potatoes, for example, boiled potatoes have the highest satiety rating out of any food that we've ever tried to measure. And it has a really high glycemic index, and it'd be really hard to make the case that boiled potatoes are addictive, right?
I mean, you could say the same thing for quite a few high volume fruits.
You know what I would actually like to see a triglyceride index of food. Like how much a food increases the triglycerides, and then I would actually like to see a food addiction related to triglyceride levels, right? Like food addiction, okay, so you have this triglyceride index, you see how much it raises your blood fat levels, and I would love to see where cheese would fall on that. I would love to see it, because fucking I could eat cheese until I fucking blow up.
So, another thing, like with the high glycemic index, like this is the thing when people are like, X macronutrient is addictive or satiating or whatever. It's like you are not in any way, shape, or form isolating that macronutrient. And actually, when the case occurs that we do that, like we do test a macronutrient in its isolated form, you don't really see any differential effects. But like when you consider like a protein rich when you consider a protein rich food to say a high glycemic index carbohydrate rich food, the food volume is different, the amount of time it takes you to chew the food is different. All of these factors that would play into satiety that have nothing to do with the fact that it's a carbohydrate or it's a protein are at play.
I'm trying to
Well, I
find
mean,
Holt's original satiety index from 1995.
I think they actually identified at least
this
food
particular text
volume.
made the this particular text made the conclusion that within a controlled environment, yes, fats do have an effect on satiety and appear to regulate appetite through several mechanisms, including the release of appetite hormones and inhibition of gastric emptying and intestinal transit.
All of
Certain
that
types of
also
fats are
equally applies to
intrinsically
carbohydrate, though.
Yeah,
All of that equally applies to carbohydrate.
yeah. Food stimulates hormonal
I
responses.
would argue that carbohydrates are a false sense of feel of of yes of satiation. I would argue that they provide a
Wait a
false sense
second.
of
A
satiation.
false sense of satiation? What does that even mean?
Like it's not. It's more bloating than actually filling you.
Yeah, but if it leads to less
That's
calorie intake, who cares what the mechanism is?
Yeah, that's satiation
so-
by definition is how
Yeah, it's like gastric distension. So like if
satiation.
so okay, I have Holt's original satiety data from 1995 up right now. If you look at something like, where is it? If you look at something like steak, it's actually non-inferior to baked beans. It's non-inferior to all brand cereal. It's non-inferior to grapes. It's non-inferior to bananas. It's non-inferior to popcorn. It's non-inferior to muesli. It's non-inferior to cornflakes. I mean, like, what do you like? What? Okay, so if the source of fat is coming from steak, it doesn't seem to matter.
Wait. So you're saying it's inferior? Like
No,
steak is
non-inferior,
to foods?
non-inferiority.
There's no measurable.
There's no statistically significant difference. Non-inferior refers to a lack of a statistically significant difference between it. Well, it gets a little bit. It's a little bit more complicated than that.
How could they possibly assert that when steak has a lot of fat and those don't?
Well,
have-
because these are the outcomes. These are the outcomes. You're fucking around with mechanisms. These are the
asking, how could they assert
outcomes.
That doesn't make any sense.
They literally
That's what I'm
looked
saying.
at
They
how much
literally
people-
measure the satiety value of these different foods by feeding them to subjects. Like, you're fucking around with mechanisms saying, oh, the fat and satiety. I don't give a shit!
Okay, would you say carbohydrates are sweet?
No! Like, not all of them. What the fuck are you talking about?
That depends.
Carbohydrates are not sweet.
Not all of them, no.
It totally depends.
Not all of them. Not all of them.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, let's look at some sweet carbohydrates.
Generally,
Let's look at some sweet carbohydrates, bud.
the sugar
Okay.
is sweet. It's sweet.
So,
I mean,
bananas.
what are you talking about here?
It's
Bananas.
not just sugar. What?
So, apples and oranges were
Carbohydrates are
non-inferior.
sugar.
Actually,
They are sugar.
apples and oranges, in their actual outcome data, apples and oranges... Okay, true or false, apples and oranges are sweet?
Yes.
True? True? Please say clearly. Please say clearly. True or false? Okay, yeah. Apples and oranges are sweet. Okay, I'm glad we agree on that. Apples and oranges were non-inferior to steak.
Okay, can you please link what your...
Yeah,
what
yeah.
you're
It's
referring to?
it's in the VC text. This is the satiety value of all of these
And
different
this is
foods.
where they were asking people whether or not they
No.
were full.
No. This was energy intake until termination, until meal termination. So like they were actually using an objective measure of satiety. How many calories did it take for people to stop eating? Boiled potatoes did the best. It just says potatoes. It is actually boiled potatoes.
Sideways ass graph.
Yeah, it's a photocopy, bud.
Potatoes,
But
boiled
if you look at the
potatoes have 37 carbohydrates. Yes, okay.
if you look at the mean and the confidence intervals for steak, they are non-inferior to probably grapes actually too, and apples and oranges, and their jelly beans actually weren't too far behind it, to be honest.
And that just shows you how ridiculous this thing really is. I mean,
Why is it ridiculous? These are actual.
How could jelly beans satiate you as much as a steak?
I don't care. These are outcomes. You're talking
don't
about mechanisms. These are outcomes. The outcome data supersedes the
don't care.
mechanisms.
So-
This
so
is
your-
outcome
your
data, bud.
position is, I don't believe
junk
it.
food-
Yeah,
And
Don't compare that a junk food can nearly match the satiation of a steak.
according to this, yes.
All right. Well,
like what why
not,
why in the world
I'll be honest.
like I feel like it versus we have objective data.
Yeah, like we actually have data where people are actually exposed.
Can you at least admit, like, genuinely, how ridiculous that is that a jelly beans, little calories, little everything, probably full of sugar, can match the satiation of a steak? Don't you probably see what
I
direction
didn't
this
say
is
it matched
going
it.
towards?
I didn't say it matched it. I said
It
they
is
were.
nearly there. It's nearly there. It's nearly
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is just like
It's nearly there. It's nearly there. In fact,
right behind it. Right behind it. Like, don't you see how
technically,
absurd that is?
I think technically,
Like, what
if
nutrients are jelly beans providing you with?
that's tangential
how-
to the point that you were trying to make. That's a red
It could
herring.
literally be the fact that people just get so tired of eating jelly beans they don't.
Yeah, yeah. It could be anything. It could be just
I was about to
it's
say that. You
not
want a
entertaining.
mechanism. It's just too sweet. How many jelly beans can you
Too
eat?
much. I'm getting tired of it.
Okay, so do you have what's your objection to the methodology? Like, let me actually.
Please tell me what is. I mean, forgive me. I'm ignorant on a lot of things. I'm not that well educated. I'm ignorant on a lot of things. I don't know the methodology.
Okay, I will literally I will post you. Oh, this thing is really. Maybe I can do it this way.
That's fine, and we appreciate
copy.
that you're honest.
There's no way
with
you
that.
guys can see the absurdity in that jelly beans. You know, they're like neck and neck with a steak. Provides all essential nutrients, plenty of fat.
No, it
There,
doesn't.
there's the actual paper. There's the actual
This
paper.
steak does contain all this.
Let's go down to the methodology. And
Yeah, the baseline with white bread. Remember that.
yeah. The baseline was white. Everything was kind of compared to white bread, right? It was like, or no. Oh yeah. Everything was compared to white bread. So they had.
Yeah, I have a lot of problems with that paper.
Everything is compared to white bread.
Well, yeah, wait a second. I don't understand why that's an objection. Like what? Why not plant the goalpost at like muesli? Why not plant the goalpost at lentils? Like, it doesn't really matter where we plant the goalpost in order to observe the differential effects between them.
Well, it absolutely does, especially when he was
Well, I mean,
considering a
do you
high
think
glycemic
white
paper
bread
in
is
his
something-
argument earlier. Like if you put the goalpost starting at white bread as opposed to a absolutely whole grain bread, you're also sort of causing an interaction problem there. Because based on countries' recommendations, they actually completely disregard white bread. They think it's a processed junk food. Whereas
But-
other countries will consider it acceptable. So it
but-
is a bit of a bad goalpost to use.
What?
That's
That just makes the
Wait,
argument
are-
stronger. You're comparing to a shitty food, and it still fares worse.
Yeah, I don't-
So like now you can understand contextually why jelly beans is coming in where it is.
Oh, well, yeah, but it doesn't make the difference.
Like-
You're comparing
Yeah.
it to other foods. The
Yeah, it wouldn't make the
comparison
difference relative
condition
to
is
other
the same.
foods.
Like,
So white bread is the reference point.
Yeah, white bread is the reference point, but I don't think it really would have mattered even if boiled potatoes were the reference point because you'd still be able to observe differential effects of different foods. I think Kitsugi
pick something,
is
like,
misunderstanding what the
Like,
paper is
do they think
representing.
white bread is
Yeah, of course you have to
satiating?
pick something. I just think that's a bad goalpost to start with.
I think
It doesn't
that
matter what
reflects
goalpost you
satiation.
start with, though. Based on the methodology,
No,
it
I
doesn't.
just gave you a reason why it does matter.
I think they have a flawed.
Kintsugi, are you
shift.
saying? Are you saying that
This-
people are eating less jelly beans, for instance, because there's a kind of stigma around it, rather than anything to do with the satiation?
No. I would rather us continue through the methodology and we keep going, and in aggregate, we see all the little problems along the way before you start asking questions. So let's
Okay.
continue rather than get derailed. Because
I-
apparently we're having an agree to disagree moment anyway.
So, no. I'm really still lost on why the reference point actually matters.
Because the reference point is what they're judging satiation off of. I mean, I think these people literally have no clue what it is, since, I mean, white bread is just a high glycemic, sugary food.
No. You're not understanding my
Right?
question. You're not understanding my question. So like, if the reference point is white bread, how does that inhibit our ability to compare the satiety effect of different foods?
Because I think they're just going off of what's sweet and applying it to satiety. I mean, I don't. That's honestly what I think.
Yeah, that doesn't interact with what I said. I'm talking specifically to kintsugi. Like, why planting the reference point at white bread? Why would that inhibit our ability to look at the differential effect between other foods relative to that reference point?
I think I
You're
just
asking
answered
me.
it.
You're asking me. How would we not be able to apply that process to it?
No,
There's no reason that we wouldn't be able to do that process. I just think it's a bad starting point for accuracy and relevance. We can still do it,
Because
but
it's
I
sweet,
don't
right?
think it's
It's
a
full of
good
sugar.
starting point for accuracy and relevance.
No
What
nutrient
would be a
food. I
better?
mean, common sense.
I would take. I wouldn't use white bread. I would use a whole grain bread, 100%
why?
whole grain bread.
Why?
I just gave you a reason earlier about the idea that
So
you
it
have
makes
that
it taste more
interaction
valid.
problem
It
between
has
different
actually
countries that believe
nutritional
that
value.
non-whole grain breads are more in the
So
junk food category than they are in the whole grain category in terms of outcomes. They believe it that way and they do their dietary guidelines that way. Because of that, you have a problem of different cultural influence interactions there that are going to look at that and be like, well, okay, we consider this acceptable, and then other countries are going to look at that, and other cultures from those countries are going to look at that and be like, that's not acceptable.
How
So
does
that's
that?
a problem in terms of goalposts.
Well, no. How does that interact with the methodology of this particular paper, though?
If like if I'm understanding that correctly, like, are you saying that would be a problem if they have a mix of people with different beliefs? Like, you would have to substantiate that's the case, right?
Well, we just did by asserting that the different dietary guidelines in different countries, some of
No,
them think that
the
whole
sample.
grain is okay and
what you're
others
saying, Bob,
don't.
you're basically saying that the baseline for satiety is white bread with little
No.
nutrients and it's
Just
highly.
for the study. Just for the study. The
But
differential
that's what
effects
they're
of
going for. That's
satiety.
what they.
The reference point was white bread. But like,
Yes, that's what they're referencing it for.
yeah. So if we look at the difference in satiety between white bread and
So
steak,
obviously, if they're
right? So
starting with
steak
that,
is more steak has a higher satiety value than white bread, and say croissants have a lower satiety value to white bread. How does that inhibit our ability to look at the differences in satiety value between steak and croissants?
we look like we're even putting.
It's in the VC text. So white bread looks like it's probably superior to croissants, right? And we're measuring the satiety value of steak relative to white bread, and then we're measuring the satiety value of croissants to white bread. How does that inhibit our ability to investigate the satiety differences between croissants and steak?
I just think it's completely flawed. Did you take a link?
No, that's not good enough. That doesn't get me any closer to understanding what the flaw is.
All right. Ask the question again.
So if the goalpost is white bread, and we're measuring the satiety value of croissants compared to white bread, and then we're measuring the satiety value of steak compared to white bread, how does that methodology inhibit our ability to look at the differential between croissants and steak in terms of satiety?
Because we're starting with white bread as a basis for satiety, which is
That's not
pretty
that's
sweet.
not a answer. That's not a satisfactory answer to my question. How does that inhibit our ability to look at the differential effects of satiety between croissants and steak?
What is satiety to you? How is
That's
it
a that
accomplished?
just
How
please answer the question. You said it's flawed. I want to understand what the flaw is. I don't want to be wrong any longer than I have to be wrong, and I'm trying to understand the flaw, and nobody's fucking telling me.
So you don't see the flaw in
No,
white bread having no nutritional value,
that's
but
not
being
what I
able to
said.
satiate someone.
That's not what I said. I said, so white bread in the satiety index scoring system, white bread is the baseline. It's the goalpost. Now, we're measuring the satiety value of croissants relative to white bread, and we're measuring the satiety value of steak relative to white bread. How does that inhibit our ability to investigate the differential effects on satiety between croissants and steak?
By this standard, it probably doesn't.
Okay, great. So we have resolution there. Can we move on?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So steak and jelly beans seem to be largely non-inferior.
Okay. And what does it say that jelly beans almost nearly matches a food that has all essential nutrients?
Actually,
Plenty of
this fucking
bread
graph is cockeyed. It's
more
actually
filling than jelly beans.
it's difficult for me to actually figure out what's non-inferior to one another because this fucking graph is so cockeyed. It doesn't.
Like inside.
I know it's so. I'm holding a pen up to the screen to try to test
you
for
guys
this
take
shit.
a look at the link I posted above. It seems like we kind of ignored that one there.
Okay, it does actually look like.
High glycemic index thing.
No, fat satiety.
Okay, Matt, you'll find this funny. I'm literally holding a fucking pen up to my screen to try to match the means and fucking the point estimates and the fucking standard deviation. I'm trying to figure out like. I know. It does look like jelly beans are actually worse, but they're not that far off actually. It looks like it's a matter of like maybe 30 calories.
Talk about why that like
That just says right there, like this is not, something you should really put faith in. I'd say.
Well, here, no. It's. I mean, it's not about faith. It's just about the data. This is the only. This is the only outcome data. It's
full of sugar.
It's
matching.
1 second. I want to address what you just said. It's an epistemic question, right? So if this is the only data that we have on this subject, and it's actually measuring the outcomes, it's actually measuring what happens when people are fed these different foods. It's not speculation about satiety mechanisms, it's actual outcomes. It is more reasonable to believe this outcome data than it is to believe the opposite, unless you can show me a catastrophically invalidating problem with the data.
So they basically were free to eat ad libitum from a standard range of foods and drinks, and then they made a satiety index from that.
It was, I believe the methodology was, it was calories consumed to completion, like to meal termination. So how many calories did it take to terminate a meal? Yeah, okay, so 1,000 kilojoule portions of the test foods were fed to the subjects in random order on separate mornings after a 10-hour overnight fast. Within each group, each subject acted as his or own control, being tested at the same time of the day and under similar conditions as possible. Subjects were asked to keep...
Even admits we only have a limited understanding of the complex interacting mechanisms of satiation.
The mechanisms can be complicated, they can be simple. It doesn't matter because the outcome data supersedes the mechanisms. The outcome data is the outcome data. We can speculate about mechanisms all day. Don't care about them.
Okay, but did you take a look at the link I posted above? Are we completely ignoring that, or...
You mean fats and satiety? Like the fats and satiety link? Okay, so does it include human outcome data with regards to ad libitum intake? But here, like the problem is like we're talking about foods, right? So it looks like they were investigating the differences in chain length of fatty acids, saturation in fatty acids, esterification in fatty acids, function of fatty acids. And it also looks like they go on to talk about carbohydrates as well. So in this, they're investigating characteristics of fatty acids and satiety. And in the other paper, they're actually investigating foods, right? They're actually investigating foods in the other one.
Right. So, right. Yes.
Yeah. So if we want to know whether or not steak is more satiating than croissants, the data that I provided is more equipped to answer that question, yes or no.
No, sir.
No, sir. So the data that you provided is more well equipped to give us answers about whether or not croissants are more satiating than steak.
Yes.
Could you provide the
And I
argument for
think we
that?
have a flawed. I think
Could
we
you
have a
provide
flawed
the argument for
standard.
that?
Yes, fat is satiating. Carbs are bloating and just sweet. They're not satiating. That
Well,
is
you
the
know,
argument.
Is
if that were true, there would be it wouldn't be the
mechanism
case
also
that
is-
if that were true, it would not be the case that lentils, baked beans, and steak would be largely in the same ballpark. It wouldn't be the case that steak
Well,
and
those have
say
large amounts of carbs. So once again, they're diluting the issue in there.
so
Getting
when we're comparing steak to brown pasta, for example, which is a refined carbohydrate, we see almost parity between the two. So clearly,
Yes,
clearly, there's
because
more
those
going
two-
on than fat. Clearly,
You
there's
also
more
see
going on
parity-
than
You also
fat.
see parity between jelly beans and steak. It's not.
Well, no, there's not
those
parity
have large
between them
amou-
two.
Those have large amounts of carbs and sugar in them. That's what I'm saying. They're creating a false sense of satiation. Whatever these people are deeming to be satiation, it's a false sense of it. It's not actually what is.
what does it matter if
It matters because people are still hungry after they eat carbohydrates. That's what I'm trying.
But that's not what
basically
this
say.
data shows. Carbohydrate simpliciter, that's
So-
not what this data shows.
unless
It's
he's
not-
saying they're
it's
still
not-
hungry, they're just choosing not to eat, which doesn't make that.
Well, that's just an empirical claim that he needs to back up if that's the claim that's being made.
So are we okay? So we're saying that insulin spikes don't happen, cravings. We're saying all these things don't happen.
Those are all
Right.
really great mechanisms. But the outcome data doesn't agree with them. Baked beans are insulinogenic, steak is insulinogenic, brown pasta is insulinogenic, and they all seem to be non-inferior to one another in terms of satiety. If the mechanisms played out in real life the way you suppose they would, we wouldn't see this.
Well, this population also had exclusion criteria. You might want to look at that.
Where is the exclusion criteria? So I see the protocol,
Under
the subjects.
if you just read the entire paragraph under subjects, you'll
Can
get a very
you just
clear
say-
understanding of who we're actually asking satiety of. So you also have to have
all
a few different
all subjects were
considerations there,
university
like-
students.
Elevations in insulin produced increased hunger, heightened perceived pleasantness of sweet taste, and increased food intake.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on.
So basically, they were healthy people.
That's healthy to be hungry after eating. After
That's that.
This is talking about chronic hyperinsulinemia. Do you know what that is?
Oh my god, it's always something. All right, what is?
I don't see how the exclusion criteria here would be invalidating.
So chronic hyperinsulinemia means that your insulin is constantly elevated.
Jeez, I
all
wonder
the
how it got that
time.
way.
Well, no, if you're eating carbohydrates, your insulin is not chronically elevated. If you're just
No,
if
it's
you're eating
postprandial.
carbohydrates, yeah, it's postprandial. The total area under the curve, if you're healthy, should be largely no different if you're eating even low
But
carb.
it's like, can we definitively say would this happen if you're just eating no carbs? Could we say that?
Would it happen? Would it happen if they were eating no carbs?
Yes,
I mean-
would their insulin levels be chronically elevated?
If they were eating no carbs with their insulin, I don't think. Yeah, like it could happen. Yeah, in the Verta paper.
So something that's
Yeah, in the
chronic, something that you can't. That is ridiculous.
In the Verta paper, they took people with type 2 diabetes and gave them a ketogenic diet, and their insulin level stayed elevated.
Wait, say that again.
In the Verta study, they took people with type 2 diabetes, basically people with hyperinsulinemia, and like as you're stating, and they gave them a ketogenic diet, and their insulin did stay elevated. Like it was not I don't think it was within the normal range.
But,
You know what
I'll have to see
happens
that, but
after
there's-
postprandial insulin
He does not comfortable
responses?
with that. At the same time, I would need to see that.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Do you know what happens after postprandial insulin responses?
No, sir, I do not. I love to know them.
Satiety.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's true. Fucking insulin has been
So
insulin
after the
has been
insulin
associated with
spike comes the
satiety.
hunger, but you're filled. So hunger comes. And
I
you're
forgot
fulfilled
about that.
at the same time, right?
No, what? Satiety comes after a postprandial spike.
Maybe it was in their supplement. I remember reading it.
Okay, if somebody has chronically elevated insulin, one, it's chronically elevated. They probably are already in a disease state. And two, do you think that's the only thing that's different? If they have chronically elevated insulin levels.
But blood sugar, like we're acting like blood sugar doesn't commonly spike from time to time within individuals who eat carbs. It's just something that happens.
Well, yeah, and
Right, and they're showing that it creates a sense of hunger. What I just mentioned.
No, you showed chronic hyperinsulinemia. You're talking about postprandial, and you linked a paper on chronic.
Chronic.
It just means sustained, like all the time.
Chronos means
Let's see. Hold up.
okay, so this is table 1. Looks like they turned this one
So
sideways.
hyperinsulinemia just means the amount of insulin in your blood is higher than what's considered normal. It's not diabetes.
Yeah, in the case of chronic, it's just like that consistently.
It's a sign of an underlying problem.
Right. The word that I keep saying, postprandial, that means your response acutely, which means for a short period of time after a meal. There's a big distinction to be made there.
But wait, where are you getting this? This is something that. Where exactly are you getting that the insulin levels are always up? Like
the paper you linked.
That's what
was on chronic hyperinsulinemia.
On chronic hyperinsulinemia,
which is by definition consistently high insulin levels.
Between 2 to 20. Okay, so insulin.
Well, I mean, chronic can just mean long term. I mean, it's not. I mean, well, I don't know what you're trying to. I don't know what you're trying.
You're trying to attribute something to an acute effect by linking papers showing an effect on chronic effects. Like, they're not the same.
So a paper in which the same thing is happening and is being studied. I mean.
No, it's not the same thing. That's the point.
So insulin spikes in normal people, that's different from insulin spikes in people with chronic hyperinsulinemia.
It's not a spike because it's not acute. It's staying there.
It's staying there. They're always raised.
Yes, that's literally the definition of chronic.
All right, I guess, man. I'm not too educated on this stuff, so I mean.
That's fine, but like, you need to understand that.
I'm trying to find like what is the normal range.
You just insulin spike, and you'll see 1,000 things on Google to examine.
Okay, insulin reference range.
So here's the thing with like acute and chronic responses. Here's the thing with acute and chronic responses. Basically, every like component of plasma, which is just in your circulation, in your blood, every component of plasma, virtually everyone, when it's elevated chronically, increases your disease risk. So you mean to tell me that every time you eat a food and every time your amino acids in circulation go up, your glucose in circulation go up, your insulation in circulation go up, your free fatty acids in circulation go up, that increases the risk of disease. So you So what do you eat? Like, that's your argument. That, like, chronic is bad, therefore any change at all, regardless of the time, is bad. It's just like it's
Less than 25.
it's like the same thing with there are markers of things like
Fasting.
there's something called flow mediated dilation, which is basically a marker of your blood flow, and people tend to connect it to like the function of your arterial wall and vessel dilation, like your blood vessels increasing to accompany a higher volume of plasma and stuff like that. And if you look at when somebody has a consistently elevated or decreased flow mediated dilation, they're at an increased risk of disease. But the problem is things like sleep and exercise actually decrease flow mediated dilation acutely. So if you were to make the argument that because something being elevated consistently is bad, therefore any lower or higher is bad, any decrease or any increase leads to an adverse effect, then you would have to concede that because things like exercise and sleep decrease this metric, that they're also bad.
I mean, generally, like, okay, so what about low blood sugar, sugar crashes? What about those?
What about them?
So they leave you feeling hungry, irritated, all the sorts of things. I mean, yes, that's basically what I'm saying. It's just like,
I don't understand how that.
I just want to come in for 1 second. Can I come in for 1 second? I was actually incorrect about the Verta data. At 1 year, their insulin levels were within the reference range. They started out of the reference range. They went into the reference range after 1 year. However, those results can probably be explained by weight loss. They don't have more granular data than yearly, unfortunately. So yeah, you guys can go back to what you were talking about. I just wanted to correct that before I forgot about it.
Due to weight loss has nothing to do with lowering the amounts of sugar or the insulin.
Well, weight loss lowers fucking insulin. Weight loss lowers
just the
insulin
weight
in
loss.
and of itself.
I mean, yes. I mean, it lowers the excess body fat of your body. Yes, yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
we literally have trials comparing equivalent weight loss from diets that are either low carb or higher in carb, and the changes in these metrics are similar.
I think keto.
It's the weight loss.
Keto, carnivore, low carb, they're all separate. Low carb has like it's up to 100 grams of sugar. I mean, it's all different. It's all different.
Right. So in the study that I mentioned earlier, Kevin Hall's study, he did a study comparing an animal-based low carbohydrate diet, like very low carbohydrate diet, if I remember correctly.
I'm just saying that generally carbohydrates come with a lot more problems than meat. I mean, meat is just fat and protein. It's simple. It satiates you, gets you your calories worth of nutrition. You don't have to eat a bunch of individual, pieces of junk. I mean, like, yeah, I mean,
That's an oversimplification.
None of that, like, yeah, okay.
oversimplification. I don't think so.
Okay, maybe like
It's not just fat and protein.
Yeah.
Well, what else is in it? It's a poison, a deadly poison, a toxin that's killing everybody. What is it?
Well, no, those are all straw man arguments. We're not saying that meat is toxic. We're not saying it's poison. We're saying that it seems to be the case that consuming more of it is not preferable to consuming less of it.
Right. And why even say that? Like,
because of all of the evidence that we
randomized-
discussed with you
randomized
earlier.
Control trials. Yes. I know. Randomized control trials. Yes. Random. All right. Great. Cool. Great. So we know about blood sugar crashes. We know they leave you feeling hungry.
Is that
We know
true?
about high blood.
What's the relevance?
I mean,
Like,
you eat a bunch of
is
sugar
that
and
true?
hungry.
That just like is that true that postprandial blood glucose excursions automatically lead to crashes, which automatically lead to hunger?
Right, that's, yeah.
Is that true? Yeah, you need to actually validate the claim. Like, that's an empirical claim, you need to back it up.
I'm sure
Alright.
there's an instance where you can find something that creates enough of a spike to result in hypoglycemia and causes those effects. But like, whether that's carbohydrates as a literal nutrient or whether that's some specific food is a
All right.
different
So, quick
story.
question: Do you think meat is causing insulin resistance and all these other
Well, not
insulin
not in
all
not in
these
all cases, but I do. The
all
data would seem to suggest that there are at least people out there for whom their insulin resistance could be attributable to meat.
okay could be attributed to meat? Right. Yep. Got you.
Well, I mean, meat intake is also pretty much universally associated with type 2 diabetes as well.
I mean, they're eating addictive carbs. They seek out the real food. Makes sense to me. Okay.
Wait a second, what?
Yes, they want something that's actually fulfilling, so they eat meat along with the garbage. Yes, that's what's happening in those
So wait,
scenarios.
meat is associating with type 2 diabetes because people are eating carbs and
Because look, you act as if people are only eating meat and they've singled it out, cause mechanism, got it down. You know, yeah,
well, I
I
didn't
said
say
they
that. I just said it was associated.
associated. Yes, okay, and that's what I said. They're also eating, along with it, your type of food, plant-based food, junk food,
Okay.
addictive
But I'm going to go
carbohydrates,
right
which
back
is
to my
like the,
example. I'm going to go
I'm
right
guessing
back to my example
you answer the
earlier
question.
where I'm going to go right back to my example earlier where you have the entire diet and you granted me that you needed to substitute. So you're taking more meat for less of the shitty diet and diabetes risk is going up. Why is it going up?
You're taking, wait, say it again?
So
Say it
you
again?
granted me earlier that
Okay.
substitutions need to happen in the diet whenever you take something out. You need to put something in. When people are putting in more meat and taking out less of the standard diet, risk of diabetes goes up, it doesn't go down. If meat was protective against
But I
diabetes,
mean,
why wouldn't you see an inverse
that doesn't
association?
mean, but in general, I'm not advocating people to eat any carbohydrates at all. So I'm
No, no,
not,
no, that's not what I'm
I
asking
mean,
you.
take more of that out. I mean,
That's not what I'm
I'm just
asking
saying
you
that
though. I'm
something needs to
saying
go
that
out, something needs to go out. It
in
doesn't
the
need any good.
population you can actually you can look at the spectrum of meat intake from the lowest intakes to the highest intakes, and then the people who have the highest intakes, because of the substitution effect that you granted me earlier, they are actually eating less of the diet that you say is causing the problem. So they are eating more meat and less of the problematic diet. Now, why is the risk of type 2 diabetes going up and not down?
I cannot answer what's happening in these randomized control trials.
Well,
I'm not sure I've been under
these would be
their
prospective
official.
cohort studies. These would be prospective cohort studies.
Mm, I'm
It
sorry,
just
forgive me.
means you
What does that mean?
follow up a group of people for a long time and look at their health outcomes.
So follow up with a group of people and reliably trust their word that they're okay. Okay, got you, got you, got you.
Well,
Makes
there's a
sense.
little bit more to it than that. Food frequency questionnaires, for example, this is actually a salient distinction between the carnivore study and the typical prospective cohort study, is that the method of self-report used in prospective cohort studies is actually validated, whereas the survey used in the carnivore study was not validated. There is no validation for it. So these people are self-reporting using validated
What is
measurement
essentially
methods.
validated?
It can mean a few
Validated
things.
measure.
So
Validated
typically
measurement
when they
methods.
use a certain questionnaire, right? And these are extensive. I've
Right.
seen plenty of these. I've been looking over these the past
And
couple
they're
of
getting
weeks.
crazy. They're getting
Questionnaire.
really crazy.
Something to write down. Gotcha.
Right. So you write down your typical consumption frequency of a group of different foods. Now, they don't just be like, okay, let's take that for granted. They say, let's take a group of people and let's also actually have them record their food intake by weight for a period of time. Or let's look at biomarkers that we can use to assess whether or not they're telling the truth. And they look at the accuracy of the questionnaire in comparison to the other methods of like direct measurement. And they see how well they're actually assessing intake.
These food frequency
Alright, so
questionnaires are actually
just
they're
curious.
the sorry, wait just 1 second. I just want to hammer home how reliable these things are. They're getting so good that we can actually predict people's nutritional status based on how they fill these things out. We can actually predict like their zinc, their iron, their folate. Like we can actually determine like we can predict what their nutritional status is by how they fill them out. That's how fucking accurate these things are now.
All right, I'm just curious. With these people that they're using in the studies, are these people actually going into any labs to um, what you call it, corroborate? I mean, to share the information that they've been reporting to them through the questionnaire or whatever? Like, are they actually seeing any of these individuals? Like, is
I'm
it
not
all
sure I
just
understand the
It
question.
depends. It depends on how it's conducted and like what the distance of like the study center is. Some places will actually have you come in and hand your questionnaire, and they'll ask you questions if you had any difficulty, whatever, and they'll assess. And then some will have more indirect communication. Um, Again, it's highly dependent on where the study center is, like where they collect
I mean, in the
everything.
context of consuming all these different things, and then it's just I don't know how you can really, I don't know how that can
Well,
really be so accurate.
here's the
But more
thing,
than
though.
you know,
When we actually look at the relative rates of concordance between nutritional epidemiology and more study methods with higher internal validity, like randomized controlled trials, they agree approximately 65 to 69% of the time. So about 2/3 of the time, nutritional epidemiology can be replicated in RCTs. So if you could have all sorts of attitudes or all sorts of intuitions about how food frequency questionnaires are bad in this way or the next way, it doesn't really change the fact that despite the limitations that you might intuit, the field of science actually has really good replication rates.
Right. You mentioned earlier, and I wasn't able to talk at the time, and I don't know if it's the case that you're referring to this specific. There's maybe two cases where they, and people will frequently cite these and be like, look, there's a lot of discordance. We can't trust it, between randomized controlled trials and nutritional epidemiology. The problem is, like, their investigations in these cases. There's one by Ionitis, and then is the other one the Blackman and Carr paper, Nick? Is that who it was? Was that another concordance paper? Did we lose him? I guess he's not here. But there's been a few investigations that people point to say that, look, like the two bodies of evidence don't really agree with each other, therefore we can't trust the one that's supposedly less rigorous. But the thing is, the two comparisons that these people are talking about, they're not even like comparisons. They're comparing research, observational research that's looking at the intake of like certain nutrients from foods, and they're comparing them to controlled trials that just gave people supplements of these nutrients, and they're like, oh, the results are different, therefore they don't agree. So it's like you're not even making a genuine comparison to something that's similar. It's completely different. And there's no consideration of like, were the people that received the supplements already getting plenty of whatever the nutrient is from their diet? Whereas in the case that you're looking at the observational research, it's like, okay, we're comparing people who get low intakes to high intakes from food, not from supplements. So their analysis,
okay,
like,
so
as an analysis, they're not even like addressing the question that they're supposed to be asking. And what Nick was referring to is there are two or three updated papers that did, I mean, these, like, you have to commend these authors. They did the most rigorous analysis. They went into each study. They said, are they actually comparing food
Oh.
exposures to food exposures or nutrient
Dude.
exposures to food exposures like this. Like, it's the amount of time and effort this must have taken was incredible.
Dude, did you
And
read the
found-
number of studies? It was 950 trials and 750 cohort studies.
And they found that when you actually look at the same thing, which that's so obvious. Like, duh, you're gonna want to look at studies that are looking at the same thing.
Oh,
The concordance rate is fantastic.
Oh, dude. And
Very cool.
it
I
gets
just
better
wanted to
than
know
that.
your rationale on it.
Oh, just one second. I just want to talk to Matt
Yeah,
for a
I
second.
just-
It gets better than that. Those numbers that they came up with, I think it was like 67% in that particular paper, like concordance. That's probably an underestimate because of the limitations that you just described. Some of those trials weren't even comparing the same thing to the epidemiology.
Right.
It's probably an underestimate, if anything. So the concordance is probably higher. And in the biomarker studies, the concordance, depending on how you look at it, it could be as high as like 90%.
It might be harder to kind of grasp in this aspect. So I kind of want to give you another example of like what this would be equivalent to doing. This would be like saying people who smoke a lot are getting a lot of exposure to nicotine. And then they say, okay, let's test this in a randomized controlled trial. And they supplement people just nicotine. And then they find that the results are different from smoking and nicotine. And they say, oh, well, they're different. We can't trust the former. Like, do you see how absurd that is?
I never thought about that before. Yeah, that's crazy. That's funny. I'm going to use that one from now on. I'm going to steal it from you. You cool with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Cool. I just wanted to see your rationale on a few things. So on the first thing, you said junk food is helping people survive because it's easier for them to consume it, and it's not a negative, right? That was basically what you said.
Well, I didn't say it was. I
junk food.
didn't. Well, in net, it's probably a benefit for people whose clinical outcomes are going to
Benefit.
turn
Junk food is a
on.
benefit.
Well, I said that it had. Well, okay. If I wanted to be very, very specific, for people in a clinical setting whose survival is going to turn on nutrition more often than not is going to be calories, and junk food is better equipped than whole foods to provide those calories in an efficient way that will actually save their life. So yeah, that would be my position.
I would disagree. I would say you can find more efficient methods. If you cut up meat, do the same thing with meat, and give it to a patient.
Dude, there are people in these hospital settings who can't even lift up a fork. They need to be fed even intravenously with like processed like macronutrients.
It doesn't have to be processed. It doesn't have to be processed.
Yes, it does.
It doesn't have to be processed.
Well, yeah, it does have to be processed because
Somebody meat.
yeah, even if you gave them a
Yes.
feeding tube, you would
cut it
need
up,
to
put it in
process
the
it.
same- Yeah, process it as in get it down to where it's really small. That's all I'm saying. There's no reason to turn to junk food to feed a sick patient. It's only
So
gonna
wait.
be to their detriment.
So you spent half the conversation trying to convince me that steak was more satiating than a lot of other foods, like jelly beans, for example. And now you're saying
Yes.
that steak despite being more satiating, is a more efficient way to deliver calories than fucking potato chips. That is fucking
Yes.
insane to me. That is insane to me. That is like a long wispy
what's
blonde
insane
cunt
about
hair
it?
away
What's
from
insane?
fucking affirming a contradiction.
I'm lost here.
Like, what are you having difficulty with? So in one half of the conversation, you were trying to convince me that steak is extremely satiating, and in the other half of the conversation, you're trying to tell me that it's a more efficient way of
So
delivering
satiate-
calories than fucking potato chips.
So
You-
satiation is just a measure. So satiation. So you're saying satiation is a measure of how easily you can digest it, how easily you can swallow it. I'm lost here.
Satiety is
A sense
What?
of fullness. Actually being at peace. Yes.
wait a second, at peace.
Filled.
No, I wouldn't accept that definition.
Filled. Being filled.
Okay, so you feel full faster on
You're
foods
not
that are
hungry,
more.
You're not craving anything.
Okay, so they're
That's
not
it.
hungry. They lose their appetite faster if they eat foods that are more satiating. Yes or no? We can agree on that.
Oh my god.
People who
their
eat
appetite
satiating foods
faster.
lose their appetite faster, yes or no?
You eat something like a pound of steak or a pound of ground beef, you're also getting your calories worth as well. So yes, they lose their appetite faster while also being satiated and getting their calories needs as well. Yes.
Okay, so a food that causes you to lose your appetite faster is more satiating. Now, in a hospital setting, satiety is something that you actually want to avoid because it's a barrier to increasing somebody's calorie intake.
Right. So we're saying that people will be more receptive to taking down 1,000 grams of processed mush or whatever instead of 1,000 calories worth of processed mush versus 1,000 grams of processed, cut down meat, basically. That's what you're basically saying.
Wait,
They're gonna have trouble.
could you restate the question?
Okay, so you're basically saying they're going to have trouble digesting 1,000 grams.
No. That's not what I said. My inference is that people would have an easier time fulfilling their calorie requirements in that particular clinical setting on junk food as opposed to steak. That's the position that I was taking.
So do you think that steak cannot be cut up and fed to a person through the same methods of the processed?
Well, I don't know.
processed-
Does the steak lose its satiety value when you cut it up?
No, that would be absurd. It doesn't.
Okay,
lose
so
its
so
fat.
so it, so it would make no
Like,
difference. My argument still goes through.
It would make no difference.
It would make. You just said it would make no
How would it make
difference.
no difference?
Satiety would be the same. You literally just told me that.
Satiety would be the same. Wait, what we're talking about compared to?
You said
I'm saying
you
there's
said
no reason to
satiety
think
for
that-
whole steak would be the same as satiety for cut up steak. That's literally what I just asked you, and you said yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. So it doesn't matter if we cut it up or leave it whole. They can still get more calories if they eat junk food.
That is.
I thought these people couldn't eat.
I would argue that it's not that it meets more their needs to eat a steak versus whatever processed garbage you're filling their body with. That's what
No,
I would argue.
I gave a particular example where there are some people who couldn't eat. If for the sake of this hypothetical, these people can eat, except their survival hinges upon whether or not they get sufficient calories. I'm saying that sufficient calories are more
Okay, but
easily
let's say they have to
attainable
eat-
with
So how many
processed
times-
food or
so are
junk
you gonna
food
feed
as
them-
opposed to steak.
So are you gonna feed them?
Will their
So are you gonna
healing
feed them all their
improve
calories?
through your
Are you gonna
strategy,
feed them-
or would a more nutritionally sound whole food matrix make more sense?
That's not the question though.
Yeah, that's not the question.
Well, I'm just
I didn't
thinking
quite
that's a
hear you,
more
but I said-
relevant question.
Well, no. In a clinical
Okay.
setting, that would be in a clinical setting that would be
Well,
like
see,
the last thing in
you're
our
going
mind.
back on what he just said. Is that we're talking about people who can eat.
Wait, what are you talking
so
about?
Are you feeding these people all their calories worth at the same time, like at the same hour of the day? You're just feeding them everything. Is that
Wait.
what we're doing here?
What's the question?
Are we feeding these patients all their calories worth in a single setting? Is that what we're doing?
Well, they're in the hospital, so yes, the answer is yes.
I think
Okay,
he means
so you're
time.
basically
Oh wait, setting or sitting?
in a sitting, in a single
In
sitting.
in a
So we
sitting?
can-
I don't know. I don't have that. Like I'm not the person to ask. I don't have the clinical experience. But Dominic said earlier that there are certain cases where if you can get somebody to eat if you can get somebody to consume a single protein shake in a day, that's considered a win because their appetite is so heavily suppressed.
Well, I'd argue you get more bang for your buck doing it with the steak than the junk food.
That's
No reason to keep
debatable.
up-
Yeah, like that's
The
just an
protein
empirical
shakes
claim.
Are literally formulated to be so nutritionally complete.
They're processed. They have a bunch of added
No,
ingredients,
no,
added
no, no,
sugar.
no, no.
That's tangential. That's tangential.
It's not. It's a detriment. That's what I'm saying. It's
No,
just-
but no.
it's
No. Wait, Matt. This is completely off topic because we're not talking about whether or not there are
Off
positives and
topic.
negatives. No. It is off topic. Let me explain. Just 1 second. It is
said
off
it's helping
topic.
people survive.
We're not
How
We're
do
not
you
talking.
talk
Yes,
about- what are you
exactly.
talking about?
We're not
What are
talking
you
about
talking
whether or
about
not
in
they're.
comparison?
No. Okay, you over talk me again. I'm gonna mute you. Okay. We are not talking about whether or not these foods have positives and negatives. We're talking about whether or not these foods are the turning point for survival. If they are detrimental in some way that doesn't interact with acute survival in this setting, I don't care, and my argument still goes through. I could grant you that if they're drinking Pepsi, there are negatives associated with that. I can grant you that there are negative effects. But what I wouldn't be willing to grant you is that steak is a more efficient way to deliver calories to these people than Pepsi.
Right, so basically, it's just easier to get down, and
It's easier to get down the calories with junk food. Yes, that's my whole fucking point. That was the whole point of my tweet.
Okay, and I'm arguing that you can cut up steak and do the same thing. With steak.
No, but you can't do that. You can't do the same thing because you just told me that satiety would be no different if you cut it up.
What is it? What? Wait, what? Can you tell me?
Because if you okay, so half the conversation you spent telling me that steak was satiating. Okay, so that means meal termination happens faster. If meal termination happens faster with steak, it is more likely that you will fulfill your calorie needs with junk food.
Cut up two steaks. It's not, you act like the average junk food bag is 1,000 calories. The average junk food bag is like, what, 160 calories, 320?
What?
You're acting like it's a half worth days of nutrition.
Okay, please, just yes or no. Does a pound of potato chips have more calories than a pound of ribeye? Yes or no?
Okay, but in that lobby in the tweet, where do you see a pound?
Any unit, a gram of steak has more calories than like, okay, so 10 grams of steak and 10 grams of potato chips. Which one have more which one has more calories? It doesn't matter. You can use whatever measurement. You can use whatever weight measurement you want, or any volume measurement you want.
Are they the same? You're saying
no. My argument hinges upon them not being the same.
They're not the same.
They are not the same. I agree with you.
Jesus Christ. But you're losing me here. I'm not understanding the connection you're making.
Okay. So you're saying that meal termination is more likely to occur when eating steak compared to potato chips, yes or no?
Say it one more time.
Meal termination, so stopping eating, satiety, loss of appetite, however you want to phrase it, meal termination is more likely to happen eating steak than eating potato chips if they're matched for, say, calories.
Yes,
because that was the entire crux of your argument a moment ago. I'm glad that you're consistent on that.
Right.
Now, if somebody's survival hinges upon the calories that they need, are they more likely to achieve that goal eating potato chips or steak?
Okay, so are we talking about someone who can eat or someone who can't eat?
Yeah, they can eat. For the sake of this hypothetical, they can eat.
Cool.
Are they more likely to achieve their calorie needs on potato chips or steak?
No question. What is steak? I mean, okay, I see what you're saying. You're saying calorie for calorie, it's exactly the same. But I just don't see the ease of obtaining... Okay. I'm missing how there's ease to obtaining junk food that meets half a day's worth of your nutritional needs.
So wait. No, this isn't what we're saying. We're talking about calories as the turning point of survival of patients in a clinical setting in a hospital.
One steak versus 1,000 individual potato chips. Yes, that would be easier than yes.
So it would be easier to obtain those calories to ensure survival with potato chips rather than steak.
No, through a steak rather than
through a steak. It would be easier to obtain those Okay, then what? If it's easier to obtain calories through steak rather than potato chips, then why were you telling me that steak was more satiating than potato chips? That's a barrier to calorie intake.
That's a barrier to calorie
intake. Satiety is a barrier to calorie intake. That's the fucking point.
Okay, but in this setting, like we're just saying that, Jesus Christ, this is...
Dude, no. Yeah. I can understand how it's a lot of work for you, because it seems like you are ideologically motivated. You are ideologically motivated to defending steak in a position where you know it can't be defended. You know you can't defend steak in this particular scenario, but you're ideologically committed to defending it.
Okay, can you tell me what are you feeding the patient in this setting? Like at this specific time, what are you feeding them?
Possible setting A, ad libitum steak intake. Possible setting B, ad libitum potato chip intake. Who's more likely to consume calories? Who's more likely to consume more calories? Let's say.
And that's a person. I mean, I can't say what
Okay.
people are drawn to. What people
Okay, so if you can't make a decision between that, are you saying that you're unsure whether or not steak is more satiating than potato chips?
No, the correct thing always would be to eat steak. That's what I'm saying.
No. Okay, this is I mean, like, that's an absurd answer, but let me restate the question. In possible world A, we have a patient who has ad libitum access to steak. In possible world B, we have the same patient who has ad libitum access to potato chips. In which possible world are they more likely to eat more calories?
Well, if they, in which world? Okay, so you're asking me to basically go in their minds or whatever. I'm just saying if they basically enjoy steak and they're smart, they'll pick the steak. If it's not, if they can't chew it, then they'll get it cut up and adjust it however they need to get it down.
This
However
isn't
they need to attain the steak, it's the steak.
Let me rephrase the question. In possible world A, we have a patient whose survival is going to hinge on getting enough calories. They have ad libitum access to steak. In possible world B, we have the same person, and they have ad libitum access to potato chips.
Survival hinges on calories.
Do you deny that fucking cancer cachexia exists? Do you deny that wasting exists? Like, there are clinical cases that hinge upon calories. That's what I'm talking about. That is the vast majority. That is the vast majority of cases where nutrition in a clinical setting is going to determine survival is getting enough calories. So in possible world A, you have somebody who needs calories in order to survive, and they have ad libitum access to steak. In possible world B, you have the same person, but they have ad libitum access to potato chips. In what possible world are they more likely to consume more calories?
Oh shit, dude.
In your world in which
you know what? I think you realize the problem with your reasoning here, and that's why you're dodging the question. You realize why your reasoning is so fucked up here, and that's why you're dodging the question.
I just realized what you're doing there. I realize what you're doing here. Yes.
So yeah, they are more likely. They are more likely to get sufficient calories. They are more likely to get sufficient calories on the potato chips. Yes or no? They are more likely to get sufficient calories on the potato chips. Yes or no?
It just depends on if they eat the potato chips or they don't.
They are more likely to get They are more likely to get sufficient calories on the potato chips. Yes or no?
No.
They are not. So potato
carbs are addictive.
Yeah, like what?
Glycemic index and carbs are addictive.
So you simultaneously believe that carbs are addictive, they cause overeating, but you also simultaneously believe that they are less likely to lead to excess or to more calorie intake when compared to steak.
So a patient would be allowed to overeat these chips and satisfy their calorie needs. You're trying to make this work for your side. I mean,
no,
individual chips to obtain the nutritional needs over one piece of steak.
Listen, if your objection is that my inference makes sense, I'll take that as a compliment.
Nick, I don't want to interrupt, but that what the fuck is his name? Asar?
And I also agree with the premise that
I think he said he's like okay to do a thing on Twitter. Like now.
Like now?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I don't think we're getting anywhere with this guy because he's perfectly happy contradicting himself, and he doesn't seem to have a defeater for my inference. So, yeah, I think my inference just goes through because he hasn't provided a decent defeater for it.
He's gone.
Yeah, he left, and that's fine.
In your inbox, I think Chris. Is Chris's name? Chris linked it.
Yeah.